What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, episode 228. It is the first official show on our road to year number 8 and the first official show of the off-season. I'm, of course, your host, Josh Burton, and joining me today on this fine Sunday afternoon, my guy, Michael DeRosa. DeRosa, we told the people after we wrapped up year 7, we talked about Florida being national champs about 3 weeks ago or so, that we would take a little break, kind of refresh, recharge our batteries. It wouldn't be that long. And I think, about 3 weeks later, we're here finally doing our off-season stuff to kick everything off. We've got a big off-season worth of shows, content coming at you. We thought no better way to let's get the off-season rolling by just talking about transfer portal, since it's kind of nearing its end, at least especially the deadline to enter is finally over with. A couple big decisions still left to be remained. The winners of the transfer portal, what rosters that we know of right now are kind of shape up the. We got a lot to talk about. I'm excited about today's show.
Yeah, very excited. It's just going to be fun to look down, give our first thoughts before we really dig into some of this stuff as we get closer to the offseason. It's going to be fun. Very excited. Very happy to be back talking ball. It's been way too long.
Yeah, 3 weeks seems like an eternity when we're so used to that grind from October until early April. We're doing 2 shows minimum a week. But every single day we're talking college basketball.
Yeah, we were texting each other every day, consuming basketball every day. Then the last few months, it's like, all right, this guy's transferring, this guy's transferring. It's like, okay, but it's just there's so much other going on. But it's like, nah, basketball.
Yeah, and look, it's overwhelming. The reason we don't do, and God bless these other brands in this space that do daily, sometimes hourly updates for YouTube content or podcasts or whatever it may be of oh, this player hit the portal. Oh, 2 hours later, this player committed to this team. It's it's so much. We end up having 5,000 kids or more in the transfer portal. It's too much to consume. That's why we give ourselves a break, so that way we can come back and just get back like we never fell off. So we're back. We're happy. Go ahead.
Real quick, I also think another thing people do is they'll see names commit to teams in the transfer portal, then they'll get really overhyped on how good those teams will be because it's the last thing that happened. They're like, oh, this team's going to be amazing. But it's we go back and then some people just stick to that opinion until the season starts. And it's well, you're just too high on that team just because it happened at that one point in April and you were really bored and they got 4 guys in one day and you were paying attention then versus if you take some time, look into these guys, I think you can give a better opinion on it too.
I will say too, that brings up a fun topic on this. And it's happened every year since the portals really became what it is today. You watch fan bases. If you just want to watch fan bases have a schizophrenic type approach to things, watch some of these fan bases during portal season, because you have some, for instance, like Arkansas, who under Musselman, we all know Muss. As soon as the portal opened and a kid of any sort of value became available, Arkansas would be offering. And you would look at the portal list, and Arkansas, Musselman had offered 70 kids, only took 5 or 6 or 9 or whatever. Arkansas now, Calipari's more measured in his approach. And you listen to Arkansas people for weeks now, oh, man, we got to keep steady, but we're getting a little anxious, a little FOMO here, fear of missing out. You look at Louisville. Huge commits early, massive. They've built a top 5 roster. They were talking shit to Kentucky people. Kentucky people couldn't handle it because they're getting anxious. Then when they start reeling off commits, they're talking shit back. You look at Indiana, a little anxious. I just think the whole watching fan bases, not even daily, hourly, kind of ride this emotional roller coaster has been fascinating.
I love also that there are a lot of fans who will panic if their team doesn't get a guy, knowing that no matter who your team picks up, you're going to be excited about it. If he's any good or not, you're just going to be oh, this guy's amazing. You'll talk yourself into it. But also you mentioned Louisville. I completely forgot Louisville had an amazing offseason until an hour before the show. Then it's wait, they got 3 of the best 4 or 5 guards in the portal or some shit. That's obviously an exaggeration, but not too much of an exaggeration.
Yeah. And the other thing too is when your school or a school perceives to quote unquote miss or whiff on a player, you have all these other fan bases that don't like that school or just want to troll. This coach whiffs, forgetting that, he's reeled off 4 really incredible top 25 commits in the portal. but he missed on these couple players, and it's crazy. The portal
It's so
really
much
is
fun.
the wild, wild west.
It's so much. It's the perfect chaotic energy that I need at this time of year.
It's insane, man. Couple pieces of news. Now, of course, 3 weeks, there's a lot that happens. Let's start off by giving a huge shout out. First of all, huge shout out to Connor McCabe. We saw Trev and Peyton in the chats. Like always, we do our shows. We're live. We're here on the YouTube. We're on Twitter. If you're following along with us live, leave your comments, get your questions about anything that's happened in the portal so far, happened during the off season, whether it be news or notes or just anything you got. We will pop them up and talk about them here on the show. Leave a follow or drop us a follow, leave us a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out heading into year 8. But let's start off with a little shout out to our guy. Let's talk about Coach Lenny Acuff coming off an incredible run at Lipscomb. We had him on the show multiple times toward the end of the year, heading in their conference tournament, and then our selection show when he led Lipscomb to an NCAA tournament bid. And shortly after, I think it was a week, 10 days after their season ended, news broke that he goes back home to Alabama, where he's from, taking over for Samford because Bucky McMillan, one of my predictions at the beginning of the year, leaves for a better job at Texas A&M. The dominoes begin to fall. Look, congratulations, Coach. We're in your corner. Tremendous head coach, Michael. We know this. He will continue the legacy of Samford that's been built by Bucky and others. They're in great hands with Coach Acuff moving forward. Congratulations to our guy. He gets to go back a little closer to home. And just tremendous run at Lipscomb, and we know he'll do big things at Samford.
100%. You put it perfectly. He's going to do excellent at Samford. It was a very good hire for Samford, and good for Coach Acuff getting back home, probably making a little more money. Let's be real. Like that's definitely exciting. Good for him. Very, very happy for him. And just the way he talked about this group he had at Lipscomb, and it was an old group. So it makes sense for him to move, restart, and give someone else the Lipscomb program to let them build it their way.
It's perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Makes so much sense. So congrats to everyone involved. Just the way he talked about this Lipscomb group, it made me really, really excited to watch them play. So that was awesome. And I'm very excited to see what he builds at Samford. Very excited.
Now, it won't quite be Bucky ball, but we all know Coach Acuff, and he said it multiple times in the show. He wants his guys to have freedom, play with it. Out fear. They're going to get shots up. They're going to, when they need to, they're going to control the pace. Like, that's why I believe, look, Samford is in great hands with Coach Acuff aboard. So congratulations to Coach. Couple pieces of news that broke within the last week. Let's talk about the CBS Sports Classic. For the last 10 years since this has been a thing, it has been North Carolina, Kentucky, Ohio State, and UCLA. Well, obviously, because UCLA and Ohio State in the same league now can't really play each other. So one of them had to theoretically get out of this event. UCLA, whether they backed out, got asked to leave, however that works, they are no longer apart, and taking their place is the Red Storm of St. John's, which means this year for their first edition, December 20th in Atlanta, Georgia, you get Rick Pitino's St. John's team, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit, that should have a top 10, top 12 roster, versus Mark Pope's Kentucky team that should have a top 5, top 10-ish roster, depending on who you talk to. The mentor versus the coach, 30 years from the time that they were together winning a national championship at the University of Kentucky. That will be electric in Catlanta, December 20th.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be a ton of fun. You texted me about the Kentucky side. I don't follow Kentucky nearly as close as you do, believe it or not. You texted me about their non-conference slate, and it's loaded. It's fun. This game's going to be fun. You mentioned it's in Catlanta, as you call it. Sure. But yeah, these two teams are going to be fun. That game's just going to come with a large scope. So I think of every team they got to find one team to play Kentucky just for this year, I think they picked the best possible one.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. You mentioned their schedule. Part of that begins because I never, as a Kentucky fan, always wanted it. The last couple of years, you've seen these high-profile exhibition games since NCAA has allowed for these things to happen, because forever, decades and decades, you had to play a non-D1 school in exhibition play. Well, here in the recent years, we've seen Indiana at Tennessee. We've seen Purdue play Arkansas. We saw last year Kansas at Arkansas in a top 15 showdown in the exhibition. Of course, the games don't count, but
Yeah.
they pack these arenas. It's a great litmus test
Yeah,
to
it gives
see
you
where
an
you're
idea
at.
of what you're expecting with these teams. Yeah.
And I never thought Kentucky, because I thought obligation-wise, they kind of were obligated to play at least one small school in Kentucky, and they'd give an opportunity like a Minnesota State or somebody. It was announced last week, Kentucky and Purdue are playing, I think it's like October 24th or something like that, in Rupp Arena in an exhibition game. Again, two teams, Purdue's projected 1-2, depending on who you talk to, heading into this next year with what they've got coming back. Kentucky, top 5, top 10. You're getting that crazy game exhibition, and I get it. The records don't count, but when we get to October 24th, whatever that specific date is, don't tell those people in Rupp Arena, the 20,000 strong, and don't tell the players from Purdue, Kentucky, when they feel the environment, these dudes are going to go after each other like it's a Final Four. This is exciting.
That game's going to be fun. Purdue, you mentioned 1-2. They're probably going to be I haven't looked into this whatsoever, but they're probably going to be on preseason number 1. They return everybody. That's going to be a ton of fun. Kentucky's going to be darn good next year. Usually around that time of year, this is how my brain works, just because I'm weird. We have the exhibitions, and I'll tune in. Like, I think St. John's played Rutgers. There were a couple others that I watched, but that was one of them. And it was like, yeah, I watched those games, but I really like try to find any bit of information I can on the secret scrimmages, just because they try to hide them. And they try to hide them, and then that's a challenge for me. It's like, oh, you don't want me to see this? Now I have to see it. Yeah. But yeah, that game's going to be a ton of fun.
Well, those are always funny too, because it's like it was old school. Nobody's there to see it. You're waiting on any sort of report.
Play by 2, so you really know absolutely nothing.
Yep.
But I try to overreact to every single one of them.
Right. Like you would get a few years back when North Carolina was supposed to be really good, and they lost an exhibition game, and I think it was to God, who was it? They lost to like VCU or something in a not an exhibition, but a close scrimmage, and people start freaking out. Like, what? But we don't know who played. We don't know how hard they were going. And then, if our memory serves me correctly, North Carolina was pretty damn good that year. So, but those are fun. Secret scrimmages. I do wonder if those will go by the wayside now that NCAA has opened up the rules.
Yeah, I'd imagine they do. And I don't blame anyone for not doing a secret scrimmage at this point. But
right. And look, Kentucky, Purdue won't be the only one. We know these happen every year. Kansas likes to play. I think Arkansas is obligated from last year to go to Kansas and play, so that should be on the docket again. Really interesting. And I'm sure we'll get more of them. I'm sure Indiana will try to get another one and a bunch of other high quality. Because honestly, at this point in time, if the NCAA is going to allow it, why not? If you get 2 exhibition games, why not play one really tough opponent to figure out kind of where you're at before the season begins in a couple weeks from then? And then play one where you can go, the Southern Mary's blind of Atlanta and beat them by 100 to kind of a feel-good moment. I don't see why, if you're a high major program, why you don't do another high major program in an exhibition game.
I think if you want to, if you're a high major team that's expected to be amazing, like Kentucky, then obviously you want to schedule whoever you can and have a fun game. But if you're a team that's not supposed to be any good, you probably don't want your team losing all sort of confidence before the season. So I could see it from that perspective. And you just want to test things out, especially if you have a completely new group. Like just looking at Butler, for example, they're going to run 10 new guys out there. You probably want to get your feet a little wet first before you really test yourself.
No, look, I get the pros and cons of it, but I just think if you have a team that you feel really, really good about, the game's wins, loss, it doesn't matter. Yes, if you lose, it could leave a little bad taste in your mouth, but it could be a wake-up call too. I think there's pros and cons to both. But Kentucky's scheduled non-con, including this Purdue game, Purdue in an exhibition game. You've got Gonzaga in Nashville. You've got Michigan State in the Champions Classic. I do believe this year it's at the Garden, I think this year, up in New York City. You've got an ACC opponent coming to Rupp. There's rumors it could be Duke. We don't know. Maybe it ends up being like North Carolina State or somebody, but you get an ACC opponent coming to Rupp Arena. I've already mentioned Gonzaga. You've got the Louisville game at Louisville. You've got Indiana at Rupp Arena this year. This schedule is St. John's in Atlanta. That's a hell of a non-con to get your team ready for SEC play. But when I was texting you guys the other day about it, you look at Houston this last year, you look at Auburn, you look at Alabama. All three played brutal non-con schedules, and all three end up pretty damn good. Either Final Four, Elite Eight, or a national title game appearance. So there's proof in the pudding. If you've got a team built for it and a team that you believe in, play a tough schedule because it really pays off.
Yeah, agreed. If you have a team that's really ready for it, you got to play somebody. It's definitely gone the other way a couple of times in these past few years. I know Sean Miller complained about it a lot at Xavier. Not last season, the season before that, when they ended up finishing a little below 500. I'm just trying to look through KenPom to see if there's like a high major team that kind of underwhelmed. I guess to an extent, North Carolina. They had the seventh best non-conference schedule rating last season, and they kind of underwhelmed. So it can go the other way, but I don't expect it to go the other way for Kentucky, and I would much rather see my team be tested than beat up on Little Sisters of the Poor.
Yeah, I completely agree. How about this for a piece of news? Moving away from scheduling Kentucky for a little bit. We knew the last 2 years how special Clemson's been in their program's history. They coming off of an Elite Eight run. They were really talented this last year. Fell a little short of those expectations in the end, but really talented. And they're arguably their best player, or one of their best players, Ian Shiflin, runs out of eligibility for basketball, apparently, because it got announced a week or so ago that he is transitioning to play for Clemson football. So he is playing now for Dabo Swinney. I mean, big body dude, we kind of made fun about how he was giving teams 20 and 20, and you're like, how's this unathletic looking dude doing all this? But he's got a football build. I don't know if he's ever played football. I assume he's played football, maybe middle school, high school, or else just walking on to play for one of the best programs over the last decade plus in college football. But Ian Shiflin now, Clemson football player.
How does he have eligibility? He's been in college 12 years. Is this one of those things where like he's just like a practice player and he doesn't get in games where I don't know how, because there's no way he's eligible, right? He's not eligible. He's played 7,527 years. Like he's
man,
done.
Devin Askew's still playing this year in college basketball. He's on Villanova this year. Chad Baker-Mazara is about to turn 39, and he's playing for USC this upcoming year after he transferred from, which, by the way, what is up with that transfer? You've had great success with Bruce Pearl at Auburn. I'd assume the NIL is decent enough. Yeah. You just made a Final Four, won the SEC regular season by a game, made it to the SEC tournament semifinals. Like you would be the guy, like SEC preseason player of the year type vibes, and you bolt for LA to go play for a program that's lesser than where you just left. I don't quite understand that move. Do you?
And no, it makes even less sense because if you look at the roster for USC, their entire roster, I mean, obviously, look, we hope. It seems like the updates on Elijah Arenas are good, but like their entire roster is power forwards. They have Marsh, Rice, 2 freshmen, and then the rest of the roster are just power forwards. Baker-Mazara, Terrence Williams, power forward. Ezra Asar, power forward. Jacob Kofi, power forward. Amarian Dickerson, power forward. Jaden Brownell, power forward. They have 6 power forwards. It doesn't make sense. And no, Baker-Mazara is not going to fit in there. It doesn't make sense for anyone at all. I don't understand what Muss is doing over there. It doesn't make any sense to me.
He's going the opposite of Vandy because, Vandy listed every single player as a point guard. Well, USC's about to have every single player as a power forward this year. But I just don't get the move. I mean, I get, okay, you want weather, maybe your lifestyle or whatever. LA, get it. Totally
He's
understand.
32. He just wants to retire at this point. He's on AARP.
Dude, you'd have been better off just, if you want to be in LA, just go to the draft, go undrafted potentially, and then just do a tryout for the Lakers or Clippers. That would have been a better route.
I mean, to be fair, he's probably going to get paid more here than he would for the Lakers or Clippers.
That's true. Look, I mean, we're kind of joking on it, and the transfer doesn't make sense. That's a hell of a pickup from us. We know how good CBM is when his head's on straight.
I'm at the point where I don't trust Muss. I don't trust him after the last 2 seasons. So until he proves to me his teams are good enough to make the tournament and do damage there, I'm not going to pick them to make the tournament. That's just kind of where I am with them.
Look, his style of play too must be in. I just, to me, I see such a hard time in the Big Ten because that grinded out physicality every single night mixed with the travel. Now we saw it this last year. He had a decently talented roster,
Yeah.
right? You saw some of their best players get plucked from other schools, and decent enough talent. They just could not match up physicality. What they finished like second to last or whatever it was. Like they did not have a great finish.
It wasn't that far down, but yeah, they were bottom tier Big Ten.
And look, I just Musk plays a specific style that is very Hollywood. Like I think he's perfect for Hollywood, but that style does not fly in the Big Ten, and he's going to have to change the way he builds rosters and maybe change the way he game plans. I just don't think it's going to work, man. I just don't. That's a tough league, and you don't have a whole lot of room to be pretty with, and his teams just like to be pretty. They don't like to be roughed up. So we'll see if he can adjust in year 2 in the Big Ten. But I think that as far as kind of major news go, I think that's about it. Like anything I missed, maybe like even if it's not major that kind of caught your eye these last 3 weeks.
I don't know when things happened, so it's kind of tough to be like, yeah, this happened. Bucky was the last major head coach hire, right?
Well, and no, Buzz Williams left Texas A&M.
Yeah, left Texas A&M
to Maryland.
Willard. We were talking about Willard last episode, so I guess Buzz leaving. Buzz just kind of stays in places for like 5 years and then just goes, all right, I'm out of here. And then just bounces to another high major and just kind of repeat the cycle.
Him at Maryland, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
He doesn't have great ties there.
No.
He was a Texas guy. I always thought like he was happy at A&M with SEC money. And we just heard what Kevin Willard put Maryland on blast during tournament season about lack of giving of funds. So, but look, if there's one thing we know historically about Buzz Williams, look, he's going to build that program and have a successful winner. Now, what's the winning look like? Well, tournament success not necessarily always been there, but they'll be stable while he's there for 5-6 years, and then we'll see what happens.
His style just does fit the Big Ten, though. Like
it just does.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, grind it out ugly. Yeah. Like Musk's style fits the SEC, and Buzz's style fits the Big Ten.
Yep.
And we'll see. We'll see. Look, on topics of coaches, like we'll talk about this obviously when we get closer to the season and kind of some of our bold predictions looking ahead to the year. But just as we sit here now, we've talked about Buzz Williams and Musselman. Give me some coaches who need a big year. Whether that, and then that doesn't, let me define big year. That doesn't mean go win a national title or even make a Final Four, but needs a big year, needs a really solid regular season, needs to obviously get in the tournament as a decent enough seed and probably win a game or 2 at the very least, or else their job is really on the hot seat. And I've got the first name on my list. I hope you say, but give me some coaches that need a big year this year.
Okay. I'm going to go a little off the grid for my first one because I also think this is a team we're probably not going to talk about enough in the offseason. So I just want to get it off the top to be like, I think this team's going to be very good, and I think this coach could really use it. It's his second year, so I think he gets a pass for year 1, and they overspent an NIL for one player, Grid Osibor. He just was not worth the investment they got for him. Yeah, I'm looking at Washington. I'm looking at Danny Sprinkle. I think this roster that he has this year is really built for success. I think they're going to be really good. And I think he kind of needs it. Like he was hired as like the wonder guy, like the coach who was just, he took Montana State, made them a winner, went to Utah State for a year. Excellent job there. Goes to Washington. You want to start some little bit of momentum. And that team was terrible last year. They were horrible. The NIL investment, similar. He got some good pieces. Mark Peterson, I think, is a really good guard. Zoom Diallo comes back. Wesley Yates, they got in the transfer portal, who was excellent at USC last year. Just excellent. Yeah, he's a sophomore. He's getting better. He's coming back to Washington, where he started his career but didn't play in year 1. Jacob Obnasevich from Lipscomb, who we were talking about earlier. We watched him play quite a bit. He's skilled. He's going to be in the Big Ten. He's good. And then inside, Lathan Somerville, off the bench, J.J. Maniquet, I think, is one of the most underrated recruits in the country. Bryson Tucker from Indiana has a ton of talent. I think that team's going to be really good. So, yeah, I think they need to get it going a little bit. I don't think enough people are going to be talking about it. I think they're going to be darn good.
Look, I'll go to the ACC. I like that shout, by the way. I'll give you two in the ACC. The number one on my list, just period, is Hubert Davis in North Carolina.
Yeah,
they have to. They cannot have another year where they go 19-13 and be on that bubble discussion and somehow escape, or however you look at it, into the NCAA tournament, and people look at them like, you shouldn't have been in here.
Yeah.
Look, if you look at the roster, we know this last year. They had no size. They had really good guard play, no size. To his credit, he's fixed this. Caleb Wilson, 5-star, NBA prospect coming in, will start, slot in right away. Athletic freak, plays at the 4, 6'9", 205. They bring in Henry Visar from Arizona, who had I guess you'd call it a breakout year this last year with Arizona as a sophomore, but bigger body, not in terms of kind of wide booty, if that's what you would call it, but he's 7 foot, 220, physical, can protect the rim, got a little skill offensively. They bring in Jaron Stevenson, which I think was one of the better portal gets that anybody's had, coming in from Alabama with all that experience, can really shoot the ball at 6'11". They've addressed the size. They bring back Seth Trimble. They will hand presumably the point guard reins over to Keon Evans, 6'2" junior. They've got a fairly talented roster. They've addressed on the surface the lack of size. He has no excuse not to have a competitive team. And I'll tell you another reason why he needs a big year this year. North Carolina State, right up the road. A lot of excitement. Will Wade will have that team. You look at North Carolina State as of now, Trey Holloman coming in from Michigan State. Anytime you get a Tom Izzo point guard, that dude's going to be ready to go. Paul McNeil, back for a sophomore year, can really shoot the ball. Terrence Arsenault coming in from Houston. Like, he's building a really good roster. He's going to put pressure on them. Of course, you always have the Duke factor. How about Miami? New head coach, Jai Lucas, brings in Trey Donaldson from Michigan after having a career year at Michigan, leading them to a deep tournament run and a Big Ten title. Malik Renew, coming off injury, but very skilled in his role at Indiana on some fairly underwhelming Indiana teams. Ernest Uday Jr. coming in from the Big 12. Shelton Henderson, he got the flip, a 5-star that was committed to him or with him at Duke, flips, and now is heading to South Beach or Miami. North Carolina is under immense pressure because they've not lived up to standards the last few years. You look at the ACC and some of your direct competitors, a lot of excitement in North Carolina State, a lot of excitement with Miami. Louisville's going to be top 5. Duke's going to be top 10, top 5, however you want to look at it. And then Clemson, you would imagine, continues to be steady. What does Florida State do now with the new head coach? Their roster looks decent, not great, decent. So, look, there's a lot of pressure in Chapel Hill and Hubert Davis. They need a big year. They absolutely need a big year this year.
Yeah, agreed there completely. They absolutely need it. And I think I know the other ACC team you're going to mention, because that just looking up and down like the list of coaches, like, that other coach will need it. But yeah,
maybe,
they do. And Keon Evans as the starting point guard. Are we sure? Are we sure that's the best you could do at North Carolina?
Yeah.
He's a good player, don't get me wrong. But I don't know, man. I mean, Isaiah Stevens was the guy on that Colorado State team. You took the second best guard on Colorado State and are going to run him at point at North Carolina. Are we sure that's what you could do? Like, you poached him from Minnesota. Your evaluation, if you get him right, is going to have to be excellent. If not, you're swimming upstream. And frankly, we look at NC State. The roster's okay at this point. It's not great. It's okay. But they're rumored to be the team for PJ Haggerty at this point. Do we know if that's going to come through? We don't. But if they're getting an All-American guard, talent, at least in terms of talent, compared to you're running Keon Evans and Seth Trimble out there, that's a lot of pressure it puts on you. Yeah, Hubert's got to win. And real quick, even though I'm going to let you go to the Strat House.
No, go ahead. Good.
I'll talk about Butler first. Yeah, absolutely. Butler has to win this year, especially with how they've built their team. We talked about NC State. They took Colt Langdon. Seemingly, the tea leaves reading them are basically like, yeah, they told Colt Langdon you weren't going to play as much because we kind of need to build a winner. They were honest with him, and he's like, yeah, we'll help you find a landing spot, whatever. That seemed to be like the tea leaves that kind of came out after Langdon ended up transferring. They have not only was the pressure on from outside, they've internally put the pressure on themselves. You have to win this year. Plain and simple. If you don't, either the program risks irrelevancy or you got to can them. There is no two ways about it. You have to win this year. And maybe that isn't even defined as make a tournament. it's like show progress and hope these young guys, because you still have a 4-man freshman class, Oliogu, Keith, and then the main two being Stink Robinson, who is now staying, and Jack McCaffrey. You have to show sustained progress for the future. That it took you so long to finally decide to recruit high school, you now have to start winning and then show that you can build this program the right way rather than whatever you were trying to do in the last couple months. Yeah, there are definitely some program things that are in my mind with Butler, but 100%, it starts with you just got to fucking win some basketball games. So completely agree here.
No, I agree. Butler has got to look, in my opinion, they've got to at least threaten sincerely. They've got to be on that bubble.
Yeah.
Come Selection Sunday, like they've got to be one of those teams that they've done enough that you're like, all right, do they get in? Do they not? That has to be progress, because the last couple of years they've not even been close.
Been
so
terrible.
The North Carolina thing, just real quick, you're right about Keon Evans. Maybe, as freshmen grow, Derek Dixon, who's slotted to be his second, maybe he's the guy by the time they hit January.
I watched him quite a bit in high school. He was a 2. When he played with Team Takeover AAU and at Gonzaga College High School, he played the 2 next to who is now at VCU, Nick Lewis, who is the 1 there. And Nick Lewis is a defensive-minded point guard, facilitator. Derek Dixon's a combo guard, but pure scorer. So from that perspective, I don't see him going from the 2 in high school and AAU ball. So he really never, he played the 1 as like a secondary ball handler, was like the backup 1, but he wasn't the 1. Now he's going to go to North Carolina and play the 1 there. I don't see it. I just don't see it. I think it'll take time for him to develop in that way, but I think he's a very talented player, frankly.
I mean, the other team I was going to mention, but now the more I've thought about it, look, I was just going to say Notre Dame. I feel like Shrewsbury has a little heat under him. Not that I think that they'll fire him if he has another kind of so-so year. But look, they've not been as good as we thought, because we knew what he did at Penn State. He'd come to Notre Dame, have presumably better resources. And look, and I get injuries and style of play, but Marcus Burton, you've got an all ACC caliber guard. Your own son, Braden Shrewsbury, can really shoot the ball. You've got a talent in Jalen Harrelson, an in-state kid that can really go score. Yes, a 5-star kid. And you got Nazli Mohammed's son, who didn't really contribute a whole lot last year as a freshman, but giving time as a sophomore. I just thought maybe with Shrewsbury as a program builder, this is going into year 3 now, I think, year 3 for him, that they're in a better spot to compete. Will they get to the level of like Miami even, or North Carolina State and Louisville? I don't think so, but can they be kind of in that mid-tier, like 5th or 6th, 7th? It would be an improvement. I think they've got to take a step forward, because you've got Marcus Burton on the team. You got a 5-star. You got to make a stand here. The other team maybe it's tournament or bust. Jeff Capel has got to do something. And with this roster,
yeah, definitely.
I don't know how. You lose Jalen Lowe, your starting point guard, electric, to Kentucky. You'll lose some other key pieces. DeRosa, when you look at Pittsburgh, they need to win. And I don't look at this roster right now and see a winner.
Yeah, I'll go Pittsburgh first. I actually like Deshaun Jackson quite a bit. I think he's very good. But is he very good as in a tournament team's best player? No, he's not. He would be very good. Like if Butler had him as their center, I'd be really high on this Butler team, because I like him quite a bit, but he's going to be the best player on an ACC team. I don't see it, frankly. He was a guy, look, I don't want to advocate for going against the rules or anything like that, because the rules exist for a reason. That said, if I was a coach and I wanted to tamper with a guy who hadn't yet signed, I don't know if he has, obviously, but Deshaun Jackson would be my first call. And that guy would make so much money wherever. Kentucky has a big, but I don't know we were talking about Texas earlier. They probably got a lot of money and they don't have a starting big. You call up Deshaun Jackson, a guy who was a legitimate factor on a team that was damn good in the Big 12. You say, hey, we'll give you whatever much, God knows how much money. You want to start at center for us and be our 5th option? It's like, yes. Boom. There you go. He would be the first guy I'd call. Yeah, I think they're going to be quite bad. I look at Notre Dame. Yeah. One thing with Notre Dame the last few years is they've been very young. That's kind of been the excuse with them, right? Marcus Burton, Braden Shrewsbury played a lot as freshmen. Keba Jai played a lot as a sophomore. These guys played a lot. Now you're old. Aside from Harrelson, and then your bench is kind of young with Muhammad, Sundra, and then some of the freshmen coming in. But your starting lineup is old. Marcus Burton's one of the best 3 to 5 guards in the ACC. You got to start winning.
Yeah.
You have a 5-star coming in. You have Kebajai is good. Braden Shrewsbury is one of the best shooters in the conference. You got to start winning. So yeah, I'm with you on that one, making the tournament. The team I thought you were going to go with, though, that you didn't. I'm looking at Wake Forest, man.
We were looking at the same team. That was going to be my next team. I think Steve Forbes is under some heat because of the collapses the last 2 years. They should have been NCAA tournament teams the last 2 years, have a big win in early February, and then just shit the bed the rest of the way. And I don't want to step on your toes here, but you look at this roster. Look, they've got some really good transfers in. This should be, again, on paper, a decent enough roster to make the NCAA tournament.
I'm not particularly high on Calmes. I will not lie to you. I like Makai Mason. I believe he played for Coach Parra, right? I remember him.
He spent last year at Washington, finished with 9.9 points, shot 40% from three in 31 games played. That is a hell of an addition to any team.
Agreed. But yeah, Omaha Billy didn't really do much last year, but he still has that 5-star pedigree. Miles Colvin comes in, again, another guy with decent expectations, probably ends up playing a lot. One of the Schweigers from Valpo, he's okay. I don't know. You have to win at Wake this year. I think this has to be the year. But again, they didn't really win with Hunter Salas and Efton Reed. So now you're talking about a roster that is worse. I still think Forbes is a good coach, but yeah, I'm out. I'm out on that team at this point.
Looking at other teams with coaches that need big years, this may be a little controversial because he's in year one. But I think Kevin Willard needs to get off to the right foot with Villanova. Villanova's been through a lot the last couple of years where they did not live up to expectations. Kevin Willard had a really good run at Seton Hall, brought it over to Maryland. They were really, really talented this year. We spent a lot of time this last year talking about him. He had that falling out with Maryland and left himself basically no choice. He had to take Villanova. So if you're going to leave, you got to win. And his roster right now looks fine. Like they get Caden Lewis after he decommits from Kentucky. He's presumed to be point guard 1. We've talked a lot about him. Lefty, really solid, got good body. I think he's already probably got close to a college-ready body right now. Can shoot, not his forte, but he's a really good facilitator. I think he's got potential to be a good defender. You bring like a guy like redshirted last year, Matthew Hodge. There's some pieces there. Bryce Lindsey, Devin Askew, even though he's 30. But I don't think if he has a bad year, they're going to fire him after year one. That's not a chance in hell unless he does something egregious. But you want to get off on the right foot. I think maybe they don't have to make the NCAA tournament in year one with this roster because I don't know if it is.
Yeah, it's not.
But you can't go 13-21. You got to be competitive, and you got to give Nova Nation reason to believe that, all right, let's get a year cycle in, year 2 and beyond will be really good. They've got to hit the ground running here. Yeah,
I'd agree. In the sense of, I don't think they need to be a tournament team. I think they need to show progress. You need to get better as the year goes on. The tea leaves on Willard are actually like, he didn't really want to leave. He just kind of was forced to once all that stuff happened. But like looking at that roster, I think they've actually got it going for the future. Obviously, Devin Askew is not a part of your long-term plans, and some of these bench pieces aren't, but they really like Matt Hodge, seemingly. Like the buzz on Matt Hodge is like he's a guy that could really break out this year. I remember watching him when he played, I don't remember he played high school ball or AAU, honestly, but it was in the New York area. But he was good. He was like really skilled. If he can get his body right, which he probably spent the last year doing, he's going to be a darn good player. So I could see Matt Hodge hitting the ground running, being really one of the better freshmen really in the country, frankly. I like Bryce Lindsey quite a bit. I imagine they start 3 guards just because on this roster, and I'm a huge Chris Jeffrey guy, so a little bit biased here, but I kind of think 5 of their 6 best guys are guards. So I think you need to run a lot of guards. Like Devin Askew's not transferring to sit in his 18th year of college ball. He's going to play at least 20 some odd minutes. Caden Lewis, really solid. I like Tyler Perkins a decent bit. I think he's good. I don't think he's great, but like he's a good player. Bryce Lindsey, I like quite a bit. And I like Christian Jeffrey. So I think you got to run a lot of 3 guard lineups here. I think you need to get off on the right foot. I don't necessarily know if you need to really push for a tournament. I think you just need to be like competent this year and then really show how you can get better next year with a core of Tyler Perkins, Bryce Lindsey, Caden Lewis, Matt Hodge. Those 4, maybe not this year, but the year after, when everybody else is getting younger, you're getting older, they should be pretty good.
No, I completely agree on everything you just said there about 3-guard lineups and looking. I think everything year one is to lay the foundation for a really solid or good year two, but they got to get off on the right foot. They just cannot have those stretches where you look up in late January and Villanova's lost 6 or 7. Like, I don't think that can happen and have the fan base still be wanting to rally for you. We got asked here by Stroud House right here. Not asked, it just said, I think Diebler needs to make the tournament this season too, going to Ohio State. I completely agree. Look, you bring back Bruce Thornton. Going to be an all Big Ten guard, probably first teamer preseason. That's your guy to lean on. Devin Royal, as a small forward, 6'6", 210 junior, if I could spit it out. That gives you some length. Of course, a lot of experience there. You bring in Brandon Noel, who as a grad transfer, I'm really high on. I have the last couple of years when I've wrote about him, played at Wright State, can really score the ball. At 6'8", he's not the most athletic, but he's crafty around the rim. He has a little tournament experience. I think he makes the jump to Ohio State. Now, it'll take him a little time, but I think when we start to get into conference play, that is a valuable piece with that type of experience. And anytime you get a dude, whether it be the most athletic or not, that can find ways to be creative and score around the rim, that's always a plus. You bring in Gabe Cupps, who just never got rolling with Indiana, never found a role, had some injury issues last year. An in-state kid from right around Columbus, played the highest level AAU basketball. He is a shooter. Now, they have him slotted here as kind of backup to Bruce Thornton. I don't love him at point guard. To me, Gabe Cupps is a guy off-ball guard that you set pin downs for, let him come off, get open, and fire. If he finds his confidence that he did not see at Indiana, kind of that he had in AAU when he was playing with Bronny James, when he was playing with some of those high-level AAU dudes, that is a shooter off the bench that every team covets and looks for. And he's crafty. He's got good court vision. Needs to put some size on. I worry about him defensively in this league, but he's familiar with the league. I do think Ohio State needs to have a run and have a good year. They've got to make the tournament. They've got to compete in the Big Ten. And if they can win a game or two, that's the bonus. But the bare minimum for me, Ohio State's one of those teams that has to make the NCAA tournament.
Can I give what will be my first, but it's not I've thought of other bold takes. We'll get to some other bold takes later, but can I give my first bold take of the year?
Go ahead.
Diebler's 2 and done. He's done after this year.
I worry about it too. The lack of depth all around. Yeah.
I also just don't think he's a good coach. Yeah. The way that Ohio State team last year would just quit at any sign of adversity, at least they kind of got better at that as the season went on, but early season, that team quit. Like the way, I don't remember what game it was, but they lost a game by like 40 early season.
Oh, yes. It was Auburn beat the brakes off of them.
Yeah. They quit in that game 2 minutes in. They quit. Yep. It was truly the most pathetic performance of any team I watched last year. I don't believe in them whatsoever. I think this roster, Bruce Thornton's amazing to your point, but I kind of think the rest of the roster is pretty overrated. I don't think like Christoph Tilly, I question how big men going from lower leagues to high major leagues will like really like turn up. I think he's 2 and done. I think this roster is pretty overrated. I don't trust him as a coach. I don't trust him to get the most out of it. And you mentioned Gabe Cupps. I don't understand the Gabe Cupps pickup whatsoever. He was a guy that was a lock to go down a level. And then Ohio, he was trying to beg Dayton to take him. And Dayton was like, maybe, maybe not. We're not sure yet. And then Ohio State's just like, we'll pay you. We'll pay you. It was like, right. I think he committed almost before the portal opened because Ohio State's offer was ridiculous. He's like, I can't not take this.
And it's back home. He grew up around that area. Yeah, look, and I think we've all saw Gabe Cupps at his very best when he was playing on the AAU circuit a couple years back. I think just me pondering, Jake Diebler in that program is looking at all right, we can get him back home where his family's closer. We can bring the best out of him. And if we do, we've got a dude who could give us 9 or 10 a game, maybe shoot close to 40% from three, be a backup point guard. Look, it's not going to be earth-shattering numbers, but it'll be numbers that will help get you in the NCAA tournament. That's what I think happened. And you brought up a good point about being 2 and done with Jake Diebler. Do you see the correlation between Diebler and Rodney Terry? Both very similar in how they got these jobs. Mm-hmm. where they tuck over mid-season for the coach who had either got fired or left, and then leads that team on a run,
a little bit of luck on their side,
gets the job full time, and it's not as easy as it was for the 8 weeks that they had the job to begin with. So I think there's a lot of parallels between Jake Diebler and Rodney Terry there. And let's be full disclosure too. It happens every single year. We're only going with what we know. Who's to say a guy like Tayson Chatham doesn't improve his body, improve his game, and come in and all of a sudden averages 19 points a game? And we've not said a word about it. So that can always happen because it does every year. But I'm with you, dude. I think Ohio State, they've got to make a run. I think it's NCAA tournament or bust for the Buckeyes this year, or they'll be in the coaching search at the end of next year.
Yeah.
Anybody else in the Big Ten? I know we kind of talked about Utah, Washington. We kind of alluded to Muss being under a little heat right now to get things rolling. What about Steve Peichel?
That was the next thing I was going to mention. Yeah.
Could not do it with 2 surefire lottery picks. Didn't even sniff the NCAA tournament bubble. A lesser team on paper anytime you lose 2 lottery picks like that. I mean, what's your take? Like, can he survive another blah or really bad year?
I'm a huge Steve Peichel guy, and last year the team definitely underperformed. But before that, what he had done at Rutgers, I think, was really, really good. And I don't think he's gotten enough credit for that. Like, I think people were calling for his job last year, and I think that was kind of insane because, like, you had one bad year. Granted, the expectations were high, and his team completely shot the bed. But, like, before that, like, with Ron Harper, with that group, they really overperformed. Now we're looking at this team, this roster. I'm looking at this roster. It's a roster that would compete in the – we talked about Coach Jacob earlier. This is a roster that would compete in the Sun Belt. I don't think they'd win a Sun Belt title. This roster is not good. It's really bad. Like, I'm just not going to sugarcoat it. Michael Davis, who is listed as one of the starters at 2, he shoots like 48% from the free throw line. Yeah, that's kind of only the only stat I need. Darren Buchanan was a kid who got benched at the end of the season for George Washington. He was a kid I am stunned they took. This Hernan Zerno kid. He committed to Villanova.
Committed to Indiana first.
Yeah,
he was originally committed to IU. Wanted to stay, according to the sources I've been told. Shout out Johnny. Wanted to stay, but new head coach Darren DeVries basically was like, nah, you don't fit what we do. He pretty much begged, like his people allegedly told Indiana, like, hey, he will stay. Like, he does not want to go anywhere.
Funny you mentioned that because I have sources towards the Villanova side. He committed to Villanova privately. It wasn't announced, but like he committed. Then the Villanova staff was just like, we're good. And that's how he ended up at Rutgers. Like, he just, after that, he decommitted. Miami also didn't take him. His recruitment opened up. Rutgers just like, we'll offer you a bag. And they're just like, yes, we're in. We're going to Rutgers. So, yeah, Manuel Ogbolite, they could not get anything at center last year. And now they're bringing him in or Baye Fall. That roster's terrible. If Peichel performs again with this group, fair play. But that roster's really bad. Like, I don't know. But do you fire the best coach in Rutgers history and risk it getting worse? But at the same time,
but you can't stay stagnant either.
Yeah,
though.
Like, stagnant is the thing. But yeah, I could see them moving on. Like, I think the fan base that you finally built up, this like the allure of the rack was there for a couple of years. It's nothing now. It's just like, okay, you need to do something. And I'm with you. The pressure is on.
Let's shift for focus to the Big 12 because there's a couple teams I think in this conference alone that need big years, and we'll go down the line and we'll just talk about them real quick so we can move to other conferences and stuff. Arizona State, Bobby Hurley has got to do something. Now, does that mean NCAA tournament? I don't know, but they've got to be competitive and win. And like, they lost all their best players. Let's just be honest. They lost all of them. Marcus Adams Jr. comes in. Where was he at? Was he at Kansas? And then where was he at?
He was the guy that committed to like 8 schools. It was
that's right.
Kansas, Gonzaga, then BYU, then Cal State Northridge, I think.
And that's the guy that you're banking on coming in and changing your program. You look at
Deshaun Alette, too. He was from Old Dominion, very talented, but was kind of the head case. I think he got suspended at the end of the season when he was at Old Dominion. Then went to TCU, was good but not great. Now he's at Arizona State. Another guy you're hinging on. Like, kind of 2 head cases.
Yeah, and look, they need a year. They need a good year. How about Baylor?
Mm-hmm.
Not that I think Scott Drew's there until he wants to be gone at Baylor. But, dude, they've not been Baylor standards the last few years.
Nope.
I think we can all agree to that. And you look at the roster this incoming year. Dan Skillings Jr. from Cincinnati. Okay, fine. Tande Yesufu, Michael Radich coming in from Oregon State. Andre Iguodala II, like if he's anything like his dad, he'll turn into be a really good player. Small forward, got the same build that his dad had back in the day. But Baylor just has not been Baylor the last few years. And I think a lot of it's to do with the offense.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Like defensively, they could get after it, but look at the last year. They had dudes who could really play, like Rob Wright could play. What's his kid? Or he's escaped my name. That's going to be an NBA lottery pick, a 5-star kid.
VJ Edgecombe.
VJ Edgecombe was expected to be like this 20-point scorer and could never find his shot. Shot like 31%. They just can't score the ball at times right now. And you're banking on Obi Agban, Dan Skillings, Tande Yesufu, Michael Radich to come in and change that philosophy. Look, the Big 12 for all the toughness and defense with teams like Houston and when Kansas is on, really great defensive team. But you look at BYU has changed the way the perception is. Arizona scores the basketball. You got to score in this league now, and I just don't see Baylor getting it done again.
Baylor does not return a single player from last year. Not one. That's
wild.
insane. That is insane to go from a team that won a national title a couple years ago to you can't return a single player. It's insane. Yeah, they really got to find it going and get some sustainability in the program at the very least. Another team that we talked about this team last year. I'm a little surprised his coach came back, but then his contract comes out and it makes sense. Wes Miller's got to win at Cincinnati.
Yep, that was my next team on the docket. Yep, good call.
Frankly, I think there could be a little bit of pressure on at BYU, but I also think they're going to answer. So, but yeah, at Cincinnati, they got to win. They could not put the ball in the hole at all last year. And now you make kind of a desperate move to get Mustafa Thiam by hiring whatever the assistant is from UCF that's going to follow, brings Thiam over. You got Jalen Celestine from Baylor, who we just talked about. Shotabayev is a highly touted recruit. You bring over Sincere Harris from West Virginia, defensive-minded guard. Jizzle James. But again,
that's the thing. That's what you said, though, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
Please.
But what you've said on every player is defensive-minded. Where's the scoring? Love Kirk Kriisa that they bring in from Kentucky, and hopefully he's healthy. He's your lone shooter on the roster as of now. And full disclosure again, unless these guys improve over the season or over the offseason, which of course can happen. But Kirk Kriisa, in my opinion, is the only guy that you've got that you can look at and be like, can he be a 37% 3-point shooter? Yeah, he can. But that's it.
Celestine, too, I would say. He can shoot, but he also cannot create a lick whatsoever. And he's pretty soft for a 4. So I don't know how you want to balance this roster. Yeah, I don't. One thing I've tried to do over the last couple of years is just if there are coaches I don't trust, I'm just not going to pick them to go far. And every once in a while, I'll get burnt by a roster that's just very talented. But I think more often than not, I'm just going to be right on not picking coaches I don't trust. And I don't trust Wes Miller. So I'm going to pick them to miss the tournament, even though this roster has tournament talent. But it was put together, as Josh mentioned, they don't have shooting. And in 2025, you need shooters.
I completely agree. Look, that's a very Mike Woodson-esque roster right there. That would be his ideal roster. Just a bunch of really tough. Look, and they're going to be tough.
Well, no, they don't have 4 centers, so not ideal, but
that's true. True. They're going to be tough as shit. The one thing what Cincinnati has going for them is you're not on paper going to out-tough them. Jizzle James, Sincere Harris, Jalen Celestine, Day Thomas. You're not going to out-tough them, but damn it, if you score more than 55 points, you're probably going to beat them.
Yep.
And that's the thing about it, and it just can't happen. How about this? Something we did not think we would say. And pressure, this is a different one about needing a big year because he's never going to get fired, I don't think. But Kansas needs a big year. They absolutely need a big year. They've had the last 2 years, arguably the worst 2-year run Bill Self has had in the last 20 years of being the coach at Kansas has happened these last 2 seasons. And yes, they make the NCAA tournament and all this other stuff. They get bounced as a 7 seed. When was the last time we've heard Bill Self Kansas 7 seed? After losing like 9 Big 12 games in the regular season. The year prior, they get ran out the building in the second round by Gonzaga as a 4 seed. After not having a great year then, they need a bounce back year. In the roster, like Darren Peterson is potentially the number 1 pick if things play out in the 2026 NBA draft. Flory Badungan, getting him back after he hit the portal initially, is a huge win for them. Bryson Tiller comes in as a freshman. Marco Jackson needs a big year as a redshirt sophomore. Melvin Council Jr. coming in. But again, Michael, I'm looking at this roster. And I forgot Trey White, who's bounced around from Louisville, Illinois, and USC, or however that goes. USC, Illinois, whatever it is. USC, hold on, I think it went USC, Louisville, Illinois, and now Kansas. Good player, can score the basketball, but not consistent.
Yeah.
It's, to me right now, they need Flory Badungan to obviously improve with his physicality in this offseason, hit the weight room, and just pray that you have like the mini version of Shaq and Kobe with Darren Peterson and Flory Badungan in a 2-man action. Because this roster right now, like, could Melvin Council Jr. be electric as a point guard and be a different point guard than what they've had that can actually go score and distribute? Of course. Can Trey White actually come in and make threes as opposed to the last couple of transfers at that spot, like an AJ Store? Of course. But, man, I'm looking at this roster, what they've lost to what they're having now. If Darren Peterson isn't everything he's cracked up to be, this could be an even worse Kansas team that we've saw the last 2 years.
So they're rumored to be one of the teams for Tyron Stokes to get him to reclass. He would be another top 3 to 5 recruit.
It's a lottery pick, yeah.
Yeah, easy. So if he reclasses, I think they're the favorite for him. So that's all rumor stuff. Of course, we'll get more on this as we get closer to the season. But I'm not going to lie, Josh. I go the other way. I think this roster is very underrated. It's especially if they get Stokes, granted. The big if, of course, so much to determine. But even kind of without him, I think this roster is really underrated. I think I'm going to be kind of in on Kansas this year. I think, one, I don't want to be my kid, and the kid's older than me. I can be harsh on him. Hunter Dickinson's addition by subtraction.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I think he's a huge addition by subtraction in case you're going to be better with Badunga getting more minutes and getting older. I think he's going to be a near lottery pick. I think Darren Peterson's going to score a ton. Off the bench, Jaden Dawson is a shooter supreme. Marco Jackson, I think, is going to be very good. And I'm in on Melvin Council. I'm very in on Melvin Council. I think he's going to be one of the more, fits like the Michael archetype, a guy who's going to be an underrated transfer. He did everything at St. Bonaventure last year. I watched him. He passes the eye test with supreme flying colors. Good scorer, slashes the lane, not a great shooter, but can shoot it. Excellent facilitator. He has the size at 6'4". He's a very good defender. I think he passes the eye test with flying colors. I think he's a guy that could be one of the most underrated transfers in the country. So you get him, especially because he doesn't have to score a ton. He can be that guy who does everything. He can be a guy who averages 9, 4, and 4 and be very good in that role. Doesn't need to be an all-star, but will be a very, very good college player at this turn. I think he fits that. Dawson, I think, is going to be a good bench scorer. Trey White is very inconsistent. Like, that's just kind of who he is. But I kind of think you take that next to Darren Peterson, who I think is just going to be a stud supreme. Yep. I think Peterson rules. I think Badunga rules. I like Council a lot. Hopefully you can, if you get Stokes coming up, that's a team I'm going to have in my preseason top 10. And I don't think many people will.
Well, in all fairness to Kansas, as of today, they have 5 open slots left.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of time to go get a tie-in Stokes. They could get maybe a couple other surprises. Maybe
Williams is another candidate too.
Oh yeah, if they get him from Texas Tech, completely changes my opinion on a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they got Stokes and Darren Williams, completely changes my tune. And I don't want to be disrespectful because it is Bill Self and you do trust him.
Yeah.
But the last 2 years we've talked a lot about missing evaluations, and you just wonder if you're trusting Trey White to be your sniper almost at your 3 spot. He'll have games where it gives you 25, but he's going to have 2 or 3 games where you don't get jack shit from him either. So 5 slots open. We'll see what their final roster looks like, but I'm so hesitant. One way or another, Kansas needs a big year for nothing more than confidence. They need to be able to go back and be like, yeah, we're competing again because the last 2 years have not done it. Last one in the Big 12, I just want to mention real quick because I don't have a whole lot of thoughts on Kansas State. They came out the gates with Jerome Tang, made that deep run in the NCAA tournament, that incredibly fun team, deep guards. They followed up with 2 pretty pedestrian years back to back. They bring in Abdi Bashir coming in from was it Monmouth? I think he led the conference and one of the top scorers in the nation. Look, I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about Moby Ika Guruku or a lot of these dudes. I know Abdi Bashir is going to be a phenomenal scoring guard, but I just think they need a big year. They need to be in tournament contention again.
I'm not going to lie. I think Abdi Bashir is a very overrated get.
You think he was just scoring because he was in a lesser conference?
Yeah, I don't think he has a good handle. And I think if I remember looking at this, I'd have to pull up the numbers, and Sports Reference has been crashing my computer for some reason lately. But he was a guy who shot better percentage-wise from 3 than 2 last year. That's a red flag to me. I don't think he can create whatsoever. And I think he's like, he's listed, let's see this, 6'7", 170.
Yeah.
He's a twig.
He's a twig, man.
And he's not a good defender. He wasn't a good defender last year. He's not going to be a good defender against better guys this year. I think he's a very overrated pickup. I don't want to like shit on a kid, but I just kind of think he's going to be overhyped. I don't think the bigs on this roster are all that good. I don't know much about this Nate Johnson kid, so I'd have to look into him more. But like, even looking at the bottom of the Big 12, like Oklahoma State's roster, I think is much better. TCU, moving on. UCF's got talent. I don't know if they'll put it together, but they've got talent. And West Virginia and Utah also have, I think, more talent. I think this team's going to be very bad next year. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Jerome Tang's going to need something going, and I don't think he's got it. I don't think he's got the sauce. I just think he got really lucky because an All-American stumbled into his hands because of Keontae Johnson's health injury. That no one else was willing to take him. You took him. You took a shot. You nailed him. He was an All-American before. He was an All-American after the health scare.
Yep.
Marquise Noel took a jump because Marquise Noel was always damn good. I just kind of think now you're kind of back to reality, and I don't think they're going to be good at all.
How about this? Shout out to Peanut BTR Posse. I've not seen it. And that's good. I'm still getting over the illness. I'm relearning.
You're old,
Peanut Butter Posse looks like he's got the Mark Pope Kentucky jersey, so I appreciate that. I've not seen him in any of our chats, so maybe a new follower here. We appreciate it. But he says, I'm not sure Bill Self knows what he's doing in the portal NIL area. I disagree, yet I slightly agree, if that makes sense. I disagree in the fact that Bill Self still puts out an incredible talent, and he knows his way around talent. He knows his way around navigating the transfer portal. Look at the guys he's brought in. I mean, we know Hunter Dickinson killed the morale of the team, but 2 years ago he was an All-American, and he brought him in from Michigan, and he read that just right. He won a national championship, the last one they won 4 or 5 seasons ago, because of a transfer from Arizona State. So he knows the portal.
Kevin McCullough too.
Yes,
Tech, yeah.
He's oh yeah. How can I forget McCullough too? He was phenomenal a couple years ago. So he knows the portal. I just think his evaluating the last couple of years of roster needs for what his team needs has been missing. He's just missed. And some of the guys too, maybe just didn't pan out. Maybe he evaluated them perfectly and got them on campus, and they just didn't. They couldn't shoot, or whatever the case may be. Rylan Griffin, for example. Yep. Everybody in the country wanted Rylan Griffin. Kansas got him, thought we'll get the Alabama version of him, and it didn't pan out. Yep. What are you going to do? NIL, I don't know. Kansas seems like they're throwing a lot of money out. Maybe it's just they're throwing a lot of money out to maybe some of the wrong people, which goes back to evaluations. But good comment. That's why I say I disagree, but slightly agree if it makes sense.
Yeah, they've missed the last 2 years, but I don't know. The last 2 years, he's definitely done a bad job, but Bill Self's just one of those guys you just kind of trust. But you could see as NIL is kind of changing the game, maybe he's a step behind to evolving to that next step.
Looking at the SEC, it's hard to say that any of these coaches really need a big year, considering what the conference just did and set records and all that with 14 teams in the NCAA tournament. But I'll give you one, and it's not desperation where, like, if they don't have this great year, that he's going to get fired or there's going to be a lot of heat from the fan base. But I'll say Arkansas, because yes, they struggled last year for the most part, but once Cal figured it out, boy, they were good. They came within a shot of making it to the Elite Eight. He's got an even better roster in year 2 on paper with all the 5-stars and returnees, which Cal historically doesn't have a lot of. DJ Wagner back as a junior. Carter Knox, as long as he doesn't go to the NBA and he comes back, he'll be back as one of their lead scoring options. Billy Richmond really had a second half of the year. Billy Richmond was as good a player as Arkansas had on the floor with everything he was able to do. Playing spot
awesome
point
in the tournament. Yeah.
Playing spot point guard minutes, good defender, athletic, can block shots. Trevon Brazil's back end of the year when they made their run, he shot like 40% from 3. They bring in Nick Pringle. They bring in Malik Ewan from Florida State. They bring in the 5-stars, Darius Acuff, Malik Thomas. This is a top 10, top 5 roster in college basketball as we head into next year. And they still have some slots open to bring in some other role pieces. So they're going to have a lot of expectations and a really talented roster. The reason I say I think there's a little pressure here is they got to go do something with it. They've got to go figure out, can we find whatever the magic we found at the back end of the year when we were on that run scoring the ball, where they spread it out, controlled the pace, they were smart, they made timely shots. They didn't still have great shooters, but they made timely shots, and they played behind their athleticism and defense. Can you do that at the beginning of the year? Because Cal teams anymore start slow. And I just feel like if you start slow again, where you have your marquee games against Baylor and the Texas conference, but like Baylor and I don't know who else they play, Houston or whoever it may be, and you don't win many of those, let's say you go 1-5 in marquee non-conference games again, heading into SEC play, look, there's going to be some fatigue there of like, why in the hell with this roster can't you get them ready to win early? So I do think there's some pressure on Arkansas to make a deep run because they've got such an incredibly talented roster.
I agree. I think there's a little bit of pressure, but I also think they're going to answer the call. I really like this roster. Just, you mentioned it. This is the most Cal has returned in a long, long time. I think they're a team that's going to compete towards the top of the SEC. You mentioned, though, that there weren't some SEC coaches that you were like, well, it's hard to see them under pressure. I kind of disagree. I think there's some pressure on quite a few guys. So definitely want to get your thoughts. I'm going to run through. But
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, first one I want to start off with is Georgia. They were good last year. They were pretty darn good, but like not great. And they just ran into Gonzaga at the worst possible time in the tournament. And that was Gonzaga's best game of the season. It's one of Georgia's worst. Like that just kind of happens. That's what happens when one game kind of judges your season. But now you look at this roster, Santos Cyril, you get him stepping up. Kanan Catchings comes over from BYU as a guy who I'm just going to say was not good last year, in my opinion. But the guards, I like these guards. Smurf Mailander, I think, is solid. Jeremiah Wilkinson was the ACC Sixth Man of the Year last year at Cal. He was excellent. I'm a huge Jordan Ross guy. I don't know how they got him and are seemingly going to convince him to come off the bench from St. Mary's. I thought he was very good, but I think there's a little bit of pressure on Mike White. I think you kind of got to start winning this year. And the front court on this team I have questions with. You return Blue Kane, who I think is like a good piece to return, but you don't return a lot. A lot of questions with these new guys. Like Jeremiah Wilkinson was coming off the bench. Smurf Mailander is coming up a level. How are you going to work with that small backcourt, especially with Blue Kane? There's a chance he plays the 3. So you're running Mailander, Wilkinson, Kane, or Mailander, Ross, Kane, or however you do it. That's 5'11", 6'3", 6'5". How are you going to make that work in the SEC league with a lot of big athletes? And Kanan Catchings was a guy who would just catch the ball and shoot it every time. Mm-hmm. How do you get him to buy into a team concept, which is really why he left Purdue originally? It's because he wasn't buying into the team. So I think there's a lot of pressure with Georgia, and I could see how it works, but I could also see how it just doesn't.
I completely agree with Georgia. You lost a lot of talent, man. A lot of your, whether it's through graduation or transfer portal, as you mentioned. Blue Kane is the one guy on the roster as of now. You look at like, all right, that's a knockdown shooter, but where's the other ones coming from? Can Kane and Catchings be, for all intents and purposes, a team player? To your point, can he translate that where he's working hard? Because the thing about Mike White's systems, this, he's going to make you defend. Yep. Like you're going to play in the half court and you're going to defend. And I don't know, at least from what we've seen so far, if Catchings is the type that's going to sacrifice his body for the team defensive concepts. That I think that's a really interesting. Give me your other SEC one, because I think I know who they are, but I'm curious on who you say.
Honestly, I think I'm going to go with a couple more, frankly. I'm just going to kind of run down a list here. We're going to skip the team that I think we're going to talk about a little bit later. LSU is another team I'm looking at. I don't know how the leash with Matt McMahon is, but yeah, De'Don Thomas, it's talent. But I cannot pretend to know a lot about any of their other transfer portal pickups. Like, I know Markel Sutton comes from Omaha, I'm pretty sure, but like I don't know how I rate him whatsoever. I haven't really looked into this roster at all, but I mean, they were the one team in the SEC that was bad last year. They were the only team in the league that was just bad. So I don't know what it's like for McMahon, just because
I'll say this, getting Jalen Reed back
Mhm.
is huge for them, because what he's able to do and provide around the rim as a rim protector allows their defense to play more aggressive on the perimeter. And he's not great around the rim, but he's capable enough around the rim as kind of a lob threat back to the basket. So he will allow their guards, and look, to their credit, they're big. The projected starting five outside of Deedon Thomas, that's a big lineup. 6'6", 6'6", 6'8", 6'10". Like, that's some athleticism and length right there.
All right. Yeah. So I think there's a little bit of pressure there. I'm just going to go straight down to the next two, frankly. Mississippi State, they've been pretty good the last few years, so I don't know if there's a ton of pressure per se, but I think this roster is taking kind of a huge risk, and I think they're a team that I think the outcomes for this team are really wide ranging. You could be really darn good, or I think you could be really bad too, just looking at it. Like Josh Hubbard, I mean, he's testing the waters, but I imagine he comes back just because I don't know if I see a role for him in the NBA, but him next to Jaden Epps. Jaden Epps is a guy I've watched a lot of. Those two are going to take like 80% of the shots on that roster. I don't really understand it whatsoever. Those are two gunners, like just straight gunners. I don't know how they fit together. And one of the problems with Georgetown last year, obviously injuries, but other things, but one of them was Mack and Epps was a really small backcourt and it didn't really work defensively. Hubbard's smaller, at least listed, smaller than Malik Mack. So I don't know how that works defensively. And then you look at the front court with this team. Quincy Ballard was good, but not great. I think he was at Wichita State last year, if I remember correctly. I have to look into that. But he's fine. And Akora Core didn't do anything, frankly, at Kansas State last year. There's a chance you start him. I don't know how that works from the roster building perspective. Is he just a guy when he was at Sanford who was just good because he was a small ball five? Or can he be a four, go against guys of his similar build who can also guard him on the perimeter? How does that work? So I've got some questions with this Mississippi State team.
I completely understand. Epps and Hubbard are yin and yang too, in a way, because Epps will defend. Hubbard will try. Like he gives great effort. Epps is the better defender. Hubbard's the better scorer. And of course, I won't be surprised if he's not the leader or top 2 or 3 in the SEC in points per game. That's a guy too. You got to give a lot of credit, because teams were begging him to hit the portal. They were begging. He would have got paid in the transfer portal, but he stayed true to Chris Jans and Mississippi State. But I'm with you. Look, and Jans has been really good in his career about taking the guys that we don't really know of. Just looking at this roster, size outside of Hubbard, of course, physicality, those are all hallmarks of what Chris Jans does, especially at Mississippi State. So my initial thought is they're going to be tough as shit. They're going to be grinded out, and they're just going to hope Epps and Hubbard can go nuclear in a lot of these games, and then maybe some fillers like Sean Jones or a guy off the bench like Jabari McGee or whoever the case may be, Delquan Warren, develop some of those guys into reliable contributors. But I'm with you. I think Mississippi State's looking at a back end of the SEC finish from what we know right now.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go, down the list. This next team is another one I have a little bit of questions with, just because I don't really understand the fit of this roster. Missouri. Dennis Gates was pretty bad in year 1, really good in year 2. Year 2 was last year, right?
Last year was
good in year 1, really bad in year 2, good in year 3. Now we're hitting year 4, right? Yeah. I don't understand this roster construction at all. Anthony Robinson, he shot 40% from 3, but he only made 20 on the year. Sebastian Mack is just a pure driver. Mark Mitchell was good last year, but I still don't really trust him as a shooter. And Sean Phillips can't really create space whatsoever. I don't think they have a ton of shooting on this roster. I think they kind of went more with the rim running, athletic, tough brand, but I don't think they have a ton of shooting. So I don't know where they find it.
I'll say this. I actually kind of like this Missouri roster. Sebastian Mack coming in from UCLA. I think that's a great fit. We saw him at UCLA this last year have some games where he carried the Bruins to wins. Mark Mitchell, not a great shooter, but when they were rolling there in January, early February, when we had them up inside the top 10 of our ECB top 25, Mark Mitchell was the catalyst. He was making 2 or 3 threes a game, it felt like. getting mid-range, getting to the rim. And then they bring in two guys. Or I'm sorry, one guy returns, Jacob Cruz, was okay last year coming in from, I think, was it Northern Kentucky. He's a dude that can shoot. I don't think his percentages match what he's capable of. If he gets rolling this year, that's a dude that's I know he'll be playing that 3 role, so it's kind of hard to say pick and pop, but he's more of a screen and pop type of big forward, however you want to look at him.
Mm-hmm.
That's a dude that can shoot. If he gets rolling, you'll look up and he's 38% from 3. And then Luke Norweather from Oklahoma. His stats don't pop out of you, but if you watched him in games and watch tape, he's a dude that another pick and popper that if you leave him open, he will bury you from 3. So I think there's some potential here. Do I think upper end of the SEC like last year? No, probably not. But they brought some dudes in and a couple guys coming back, especially Mark Mitchell, that I look at this roster and I think, man, I think this is a tournament team again.
Okay. Yeah. That was the roster I had some questions with. Just scrolling down, I think this Oklahoma roster is actually quite underrated. I think it's pretty good. Yep. I like it quite a bit.
How about two former Alabama players on the roster?
Yeah, Milwaukee, and I think Darren Reed is going to be very good. I think he's going to be very good. But I also think there could be a little bit of pressure on Porter Moser just because they haven't had really any sort of success this last few years. They made the tournament last year, right? Did they make the tournament?
Yeah, they made it.
Yeah, they made it. I don't remember if they won a game.
They played UConn.
Yes.
They played UConn really tough.
Yeah.
Really tough.
But I think there's a little bit of pressure on Porter Moser, more so from outside noise, just because are they like, what's the ceiling of the Oklahoma program, or have they just kind of like maxed out at just being okay these last couple of years? They've started the season really well the last few years and then just kind of meandered as we hit SEC play. So I think there's some questions from that perspective, but I'm not going to lie. I like this roster quite a bit, frankly.
Yeah, Nigel Pack, look, I obviously carries a lot of he's the original NIL guy, right? As far as like demanding a bag. And remember, he demanded $1 million from Miami a few years ago, and we're like, oh my God. And it broke the mold, and now we're $7 million. But no, I'm with you. I kind of like this roster. Nigel Pack scorer. Darian Reed has scoring potential. The two-way guy. Mo Wagu back there blocking shots. I'm with you. I don't think it's a great roster. I think it's a good roster. I'm kind of with you in Oklahoma. I think that they need a big year though to prove it, because you bring in Pat that's demanding of a lot of NIL, super experienced. I think there's expectations to go win ball games now.
Yeah. I think the last team I'm going to bring up, because I don't think Ole Miss's roster is done, and I don't like it.
No, they've got 6 open spots right now.
Yeah, I don't like it at all. Let's look at South Carolina's roster. I think it's weird. I don't really know how else to explain it. You get Miles Stute back from redshirt. He's getting back for a 6 year.
Vanderbilt. Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. That's a guy I took the SAT with, so he's my age. So yeah, that's gonna be my 2nd year out of school. But you bring in K-Pitch from UCSD. Mitu Johnson comes back. Bring in Mongolian Mike, who is the ultimate on paper player. Like, you watch his highlights, you're like, oh my God, this guy's going to be amazing. Then you watch him in reality, and you're like, oh, okay, he's just okay. I don't know. I mean, they obviously don't have a ton to work with in terms of NIL and stuff like that, but I don't know what the ceiling for this roster is. I like the Michi Johnson pickup. I think the K-Pitch pickup was smart, but you get Stute back. You lose Tracy Eaglestaff. This high school class, Eli Ellis, I think, is just kind of one of those like internet sensations, but maybe he's also a really good player.
Look, I've been told a long time. Shout out our guy, Phil Dexter, and even Trevor has told me a long time about this Eli Ellis kid, that how talented he is. I'm curious to see how it performs on the big stage.
I question the overtime elite kids at this point, just because I think you kind of come into school with an ego, because you have a lot of social media followers, and the overtime elite league is essentially just for highlights.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're playing in a real team system. And Lamont Parrish is not going to tolerate BS. Like, he's a straight arrow coach. I
would think Eli Ellis though knows that. Like, he's got, if he's smart at all, he's got to know what he's walking into.
But there's one part of knowing it, but then there's the other part of also experiencing it. So I got some questions there, but the talent is there. I just don't think he's amazing. Kobe Knox comes in. I mean, we're kind of, I don't know if this kid gets many minutes, but I watched this Grant Polk kid play. He played against my little brother's team, so I watched him in person when I was back home. Big shooter, not really athletic, not really physical at this point. I don't want to like be just disrespectful, but they lost to my little brother's team. They lost to a public school when I watched them play. It was him and some other kid who was like fringe. It was like looking good. Those two were really good, but they lost to my little brother's team. So like, I don't know. He was amazing in that game though. He made like every shot, 6'7". He can shoot it. I can understand why how major would take him. He's not going to be ready year one, but I'm just kind of intrigued.
Well, looking at that roster, you said it the best. Like, this is what the roster kind of looked like, though, 2 years ago when they surprised everybody and was at the top of the SEC and finished that four-way tie for second place. Meechie Johnson, of course, was on that roster, so he comes back to the system. He's very familiar with Miles Studi, knows the system, and they're not athletic. They're not going to blow off the page with talent, but they've got a little shooting. They've got some size. And the way Lamont Paris plays, they're going to limit possessions. They're going to grind the game to a halt. And if they make shots, that's why I think Meechie Johnson's back. And if Eli Ellis, is as good as advertised, look, we seen this role 2 years ago. They will frustrate the shit out of you defensively. They will make shots after burning clock for 34 seconds. And the next thing you know, you look up and it's 3 minutes left to go in the game, and they're at 47-39. And you're like, how do we get out of this?
Yep.
This is, I think, I'm not saying they'll finish at the top of the conference again, but I look at this and I'm like, is South Carolina going to sleep on some, or if people are going to sleep on South Carolina enough that they're going to creep up on people this year?
Yeah.
I think there's a possibility. We'll see. There's one other team I want to talk about on that needs a big year, and then we can move on to our big winners and start to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we haven't talked Gonzaga. We talked a lot about them last season. When they were losing all those high level non-conference games, lost to Kentucky, lost to UConn. The only big one they had was at the beginning of the year where they beat the dog shit out of Baylor at home. Turns out Baylor wasn't as good as we thought they were going to be. They found some rhythm in the WCC, but then also lost every time they played lost twice in regular season. St. Mary's beat them in the WCC tournament final. Didn't really have a great run in the NCAA tournament. And they were kind of like that the year prior, similar to what Kansas has been, honest. But Gonzaga was able to figure it out that year, knocking Kansas out to make the Sweet 16 for a record, 9 years in a row. I think they need a big year. They bring in Braden Smith, the other Braden Smith from Colgate, who is an assist monster. I think he averaged, 5.6 assists per game last year at Colgate, 5.5 rebounds, 1.9 steals. He will be a different change of pace point guard than what they've had with Nembhard the last few years. They take a chance on Adam Miller, who was highly coveted years ago coming out of high school, started at Illinois, went to LSU. I forgot where he's at last year.
Arizona State.
Or Arizona State, it's right. Now Gonzaga just got him.
I remember this vividly. There was an old tweet of Adam Miller right before he entered the portal after LSU, and he said, "There will never be the day where you find ace in the portal." Adam Miller's on his fourth school now.
Yeah, and that always brings cause for concern when you got a kid that's bounced around a lot like that. They bring in Jalen Worley from Virginia. Not much of a scorer, really, but 6 points a game. 2.5 rebounds, 2.9 assists, 42% from floor, 14.3% from three. What was Gonzaga's weakness last year? 3-point shooting. They could not shoot. Braden Huff at power. I mean, Graham Ike is by far their best player, will be an all-American type of performer. But, brother, when I look at this lineup, Braden Smith's really good. But like you always say, does it translate from Colgate to Gonzaga? Adam Miller is a huge risk reward. Jalen Worley, are you going to rely on Braden Huff to step out and make a bunch of threes and be your shooter for you? Mm-hmm. There's always a possibility that still Venters. I know he's injured right now, but if he comes back from injury, he improves. Or like Emmanuel, is it Innocenti, right?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
And they've still got some roster spots open. I'm just saying this. Their starting five's good enough, I think, to warrant a top 25 preseason spot. But their bench says that this team's not top 40, if that makes sense at all. To me, I worry about the lack of quality depth. I worry about shooting yet again. I think this, on paper right now, this could be the worst Gonzaga team in a regular season we've seen in many years.
I'd agree. I'd agree completely. And one thing they're doing that's different from everyone else, and which I think adds questions, and I don't think really, I'm not like, it makes me kind of lower on them, frankly. They're relying a lot on red shirts.
Yep.
Braden Smith did not play last season. He was at Gonzaga, but he redshirted behind Nembhard. He didn't play. Jalen Worley was a guy who transferred to Gonzaga. So he transferred after Tony Bennett left. He was the one guy that left Virginia. It was just like, yeah, I'm not staying for Ron Sanchez. He left. Didn't play a lot last year at all. Steele Venter's been hurt 2 seasons in a row. Those are 3 guys you're going to count on for huge, huge minutes. Are they ready for it? Are they not? There's so much unknown in what happened in that year of development, but gun to my head, I'm going to be lower on them than most. I agree with you. I think this is the worst Gonzaga team in recent memory, and maybe a little bit of pressure will come with them as they make that transition from the WCC. I believe they're in the new Pac-12 or whatever after this year, or however it works out. So that's weird. There's another team I want to mention, though, that I think kind of needs a big year before we move on to the next segment.
Hold on. I just want to say last thing on Gonzaga. Like, they bring in 4-star Davis Fogel, 6'7", 185 freshman. Looks like he could play a 2-3 guards or 2 or 3 spot. They on this depth chart here, they have him listed as the number. I guess if you're looking at depth chart like football, he'd be 3rd string in shooting guard behind Adam Miller and Emmanuel Inocenti. But yeah, he's a 4-star. He graded out on 24/7 Sports as a 95, which was really good, 34th nationally. But look at his offer list. He chose Gonzaga over Nebraska, Boise State, Creighton, and Indiana. Look, Creighton's been great. Indiana, that's a historical program, great. Boise State's been good. Nebraska's been good lately. But if you're the highest of highs, like you didn't hear Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, so it makes you question, as a highly rated 4-star, how good is this kid?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I don't know. I think we're in for a weird type of year where Gonzaga is not great at all. But go ahead.
Yeah, there's one more team I think that kind of, I mean, if we go to the Big East, I could do this for a couple teams, but I'm just going to say it. Ed Cooley needs to do something in year 3. The pitch was, it was simple. It was year 1, just complete, lay the ground. You get a pass for that. Absolutely. Year 2, show some progress. They did. You get a pass for that. Year 3 was the year you built on winning. And I'm not going to give him, I don't think he deserves the benefit of the doubt if Sorber goes pro. It's 50-50 decision seemingly at this time. If Sorber comes back, that is a team that is top 25 good on that roster, and I don't think will be talked about as that. If he doesn't, your front court entering Big East play is Caleb Williams, Jaden Fort, Isaiah Abraham, Julius Halafanua, Vinci Wachuku, Seal Juf. Of those guys, Caleb Williams is the only one who has played legitimate Big East minutes, and Vince, but Vince was a backup.
Yeah.
Entirely unproven. So there are definitely going to be some concerns. I like that backcourt quite a bit, but Langston Love is a guy who is really good when healthy, but he's bad when he isn't, and he's on a bum ankle. So I think they need pieces. They need bodies to get in there. And I think this needs to be the year for Ed Cooley. You need to show like this team, you need to make the tournament. Ideally be a team that can win a game in the tournament, but you need to make the tournament. I don't think they'll get fired if they're bad this year. I don't see that happening whatsoever unless something crazy happens. But you're going to get, if they're not making the tournament this year or even coming close, you're going to get people talking, just being like, okay, hold on a second. Is this the guy that's going to lead Georgetown back to greatness, or is this the guy? Just another guy.
Completely agree, especially after like year 1 was bad. Year 2, this last year, wasn't that bad. Like they had moments like when they reeled off some good wins when they beat Creighton and who was it, Connecticut, or who was it? It was Creighton and somebody. I forgot because we talked about it quite a bit. But
Xavier.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. So they were competitive this year, year 3. In the roster, Malik Mack from Harvard, Langston Love from Baylor, KJ Lewis from Arizona, and KJ Lewis had really great moments for Arizona. We said because he played behind Caleb Love and some of these other dudes that give him the opportunity to be kind of the guy, and we think he'll blossom. He's going to get it at Georgetown. Yeah. I think Sorber coming back could be an all Big East, maybe Big East player of the year type of player. I really love that potential starting 5. And then you throw in some depth pieces. I agree. I think Cooley needs a big year. I think they've got to get right. If they don't make the tournament, it's got to be tournament conversation. Last one I want to mention to you real quick. Then we'll talk about our winners because we've talked a lot about who needs big years on hot seats and all that stuff. So I don't want to be completely negative in that way. Marquette.
Yeah.
Like, they've been solid every year that Shaka's been there. They won the Big East outright a couple years ago. They lose all that talent. They were competitive last year, but all those studs are gone.
Yeah.
Like, every stud from the last 4 years that you look at, you're like, oh, man, they were great college players. They don't have a great college player on this roster as of now, and they still do not take transfers. You look at this roster, they've got 2 open spots left. They've not taken a single transfer, which there's something to be said about that, but there's also something like, this is the new era. You need pieces. Why the hell are you not using it? Sean Jones, projected point guard. We know he's good, but I think he's coming off injury. I think he's a career backup, though. Like, some guys are just better coming off the bench as opposed to now your starting minutes. Chase Ross, inconsistent, but he could be really, really good at times. Zaire Lowry, like Ben Gold at center is a really good piece to come back. Dude, it's hard for me because I've been burnt by them the last few years to trust Marquette. They've been really good, really solid, but man, I think they need a good year where, to me, a good year, like a prove-it year, they've got to win at least a game or two in the NCAA tournament. No more of this shit where you're like, man, they're really good in the Big East. Man, they've got a top 4 or 5 seed. Man, you look at their draw and like think that this team could actually make a run. Oh, they get beat by Michigan State, who's a 7 seed in the second round.
Yeah. I think we're going to get to the point in the offseason where people are going to be too low on Marquette. I don't think we're there yet, but we're kind of getting there, at least in Big East circles. In national circles, people are more reasonable about it, honestly, just because when you're in the Big East, you look at every team so closely, right? Mm-hmm. You can say this for any league, but like just for Big East people, you're looking at the league so closely, and it's like everybody else is taking transfers. They're getting better here, they're getting better here, and we don't hear anything about Marquette. I think, but like that said, I think they're a fringe tournament team at this point. I'd lean out, but like I'd lean out at this point, frankly. I think the development with Chase Ross is going to be key. You need to get him going. You need to get, I think Nigel James, who is listed as the backup to Sean Jones, I think he's going to be a darn good college player, but I don't know if he's there yet. But he's a guy that I like quite a bit. I think he's definitely their best freshman. I think he's really the only guy of their freshman class that's going to get any real run. Zaire Lowry, good, not great, showed a little bit of progress. He's got room to grow. I like Royce Parham quite a bit at the 4. I think he's actually a guy. A lot of people who like follow Marquette closely say Zaire Lowry is the guy that they see to break out. I see why more people believe he does than Parham, but I'm on the Parham side. I think Parham's very talented. I think he's finally going to be able to play his natural 4 position a little bit more next to Ben Gold. And I think he's a guy who can space the floor. He can put the ball on that floor a little bit. He scores well in that high post area. He can step out, hit a couple jump shots with more space. He'll be able to bang in inside too. Won't have to go against 5s defensively, so he can put at least some impact on that end. I think he's the guy that's going to develop. And yeah, you mentioned Ben Gold as a nice piece coming back. I'm not going to lie. I got a ton of questions. Ben Gold, right. What they did defensively last year really kind of saved Ben Gold, frankly, is because Ross and Mitchell were their 2 guards. They would just hound your guard, and they would prevent any post-entry pass from coming. They would dig down really well, and they'd smother the ball too, so you couldn't make the pass. So you'd have to kind of kick it, reset, and just kind of slow things down, eat up clock, and then they'd be in passing lanes and get steals. You don't have Stevie Mitchell doing that. You have Chase Ross, who's darn good. I don't know if Lowry can replace Mitchell in that aspect. So now it's going to be more dependent on Ben Gold protecting the rim, Ben Gold rebounding, Ben Gold doing all these things that bigs do. And he's just not that guy. That's just not who he is. He was kind of their weak point. And when they lost in the tournament to New Mexico, they got destroyed on the glass. They got destroyed in those areas. They had David Joplin was magnificent in that game, and it didn't matter. Donovan Dent was getting to the rim kind of at will later in that game to seal it. So yeah, I got questions with this Marquette team. I do kind of agree. And one more thing is more of like a broad program stuff. I'm imagining I'll talk much more in detail about this on like Big East related shows. But man, the pitch with Marquette, right, is you're going to come in. We're not going to recruit over. We're not going to recruit transfers over. You're going to develop you and focus on your career, right? That's the pitch. The problem at this point is you're not recruiting some of the higher ranked high school guys. You've been living in that 75 to 150-ish range, and you've done well with that. But what happens when you miss a couple evaluations? Because it's going to happen. It's just human nature. You're not going to hit on every single one.
Yep.
What happens then? What happens? Are you stuck for 2 or 3 years? Can you overcome that? How do you work with that? And
well, look how many kids from the state of Wisconsin in the last 10 years have like high level that Marquette presumably is just not recruiting. Like Tyler Hero, for instance. When he went to Marquette, I don't know. I know he was originally committed to Wisconsin, but you never know if you don't go after him.
Yeah.
Con Knippel from right there in Milwaukee. You don't recruit him or don't really make a push for him because you want to go get a guy who's rated 78th. Like, your job is to win games and bring the best talent in. And there is something to be said about, like, yeah, we'll do it old school. We'll develop. I want to develop these kids. But just because you bring them in doesn't mean that they won't leave ever. So if they're going to leave, why don't you bring kids in? Like,
or if you're doing this model, you have to recruit some of the better high school talent to take your program to the next level.
Yep.
You want to win tournament games, you need a little more talent. You got to find guys that can do that rather than just being the early season merchants. You need guys who are going to develop, get better over time. And like, they went hard after Cam Ward. He was their guy. He was their number one target very clearly. He was the guy they wanted most. They lost him to Michigan State. Michigan State is going to recruit over him every year. You have connections to the AU program. You got, he was with Team Durant. You got Royce Parham from Team Durant. You probably got other guys from that program over the years, but you had connections there. You had really no reason to miss out on him. He was the guy you prioritized all offseason. First, Michigan State came in late. It was just like, yeah, we like you. And Michigan State's kind of operating similarly to how Marquette is doing it, not to the same extent, but Izzo wants to recruit high school and he wants to recruit his type of guys. We know how Tom Izzo works, but that was a guy you should have had and you didn't get. So now the question is, are you going to be able to get some of these better high school kids? If this is the path you want to take and you want to more or less avoid the portal, you got to recruit some better kids in high school. I think that is the problem to me.
You got to offset the talent with high level. And I completely agree. Let's start wrapping today's show up with talking about the winners, quote, and I'll use quotations, so far of the transfer portal. And that means the teams that, whether it be just a couple guys to fill absolute needs that were lacking from last year, high level talent, quality of talent, just that have really improved their roster. And this is in no particular order. We're not going to rank them like the number one transfer portal team or anything silly like that. But I will say, I'll start in the ACC, and I think the first team I think of is Louisville. Actually, I'll put it this way. The first two teams I think of when we're talking transfer portal that's been A-plus home run hits in the transfer portal are both in the state of Kentucky, the Louisville Cardinals and the Kentucky Wildcats. They have both absolutely, in their own ways, crushed this transfer portal. Both teams that we've already talked about in this 90 minutes plus so far, we've both mentioned that they could be top 5 teams preseason in our top 25 poll, and that's for damn good reason. When you look at both these teams, we'll start with Louisville first. Talk about this phenomenal job, not only transfer portal, but bringing a kid from Germany and Sonata Frew that has high-level potential NBA-type potential to him to come in and play that center role alongside Ali Khalifa battle. Kashawn Pryor comes back. Like, this is a squad now.
Yeah. The fact that you are able, I mean, look at that backcourt. How many teams in the country are going to have a better backcourt than Adrian Woolley, who is one of the higher touted guys from Kennesaw State, like shooter supreme, does kind of a little bit of everything. He's a guy that projects to be great down the line. Maybe not amazing this year, but like he's a guy that would start at a lot of schools this year. Mikael Brown, top 5 kid. Ryan Conwell, we saw what he did at Xavier. He's just going to be better this year. Yep. He fits this system like a glove, man, like a glove. And you have all those guys, right? That backcourt of those 3 would be amazing, and you can run those for 80 minutes and be completely okay with it. You have those guys, right? And you still get Isaac McNeely? Still?
From Virginia. Like,
crazy. I mean, like, it comes out as like, yeah, I might come off the bench, but I still want to come to Louisville. That's crazy. Yep. That is crazy. Yeah, winner, and they did it a lot early. I cannot pretend to know anything about Frew. I cannot pretend to know a single thing about him, so I can't talk about him at all. But just that backcourt, I mean, how many backcourts in the country are better than that?
I mean, that's phenomenal. It may be the number one. I mean, Mikael Brown, we saw what he did a few weeks ago. If you watched the Nike Hoop Summit, where he played like 29 minutes for that incredible USA team where they had to struggle to come back to play the world team. He was really good in that game, played well in the McDonald's All-American game. That's an NBA talent right there, 5-star kid. I think that's a first for Pat Kelsey in his career, right? Because, I mean, he never got a 5-star at Charleston.
No.
So his first ever 5-star, Michael Brown Jr. is the real deal. Adrian Woolley coming in, Kennesaw is a scorer. Ryan Conwell's a shooter. Isaac McNeely's a shooter. They bring back Javon Hadley, which is huge considering the year he had last year. Kobe Rogers comes back because Sean Pryor coming off injury changes this whole team. Prior to injury, the dude was getting rebounds defensively, leading the break, and making plays. Not a great shooter, but comparable enough to stretch the floor at 6'10". Kenai Ruth's coming back to give a little depth. Sonata Fruit. Now, because he's from Germany, you could only watch the highlights, and we'll talk about with Kentucky. How well does that translate? We don't know until they get over here. But the ceiling on the kid has everybody excited because you look at what he's able to do at 6'11", 245, and you're like, boy, if that translates over here to this game where he's been playing against grown men professionals, like that's why people are excited because his ability to play that European style, but physical as shit and getting rebounds down low, that's a piece. And then Ali Khalifa, who redshirted this last year to get familiar with the system, to get in shape. I know he was injured. That's a dude that you loved when he was at BYU. This team, and you look at the depth chart, they still have open spots to fill, but they are 2 deep at every single role. They go 10 deep as of now, and the 10 deep are a top 5, top 6 team in college basketball entering the year. I think Pat Kelsey has absolutely crushed this roster build.
So I've got a couple questions with this team like that. I have to still tape. I'd have to look into Frew at all. I don't know a single thing about him, so I'm going to ask this to you more so. How is he as a rim protector?
Okay, so from what I saw, good. Not great from what I remember seeing, but good. But again, that's against professionals.
Yeah.
If he brings the good to college and everything translates, like maybe he's a great rim protector. So where like, I'll try to put it like this. I don't know what his stats were officially. I'll have to look them up. But let's say he averaged like 2 blocks a game in Germany. And everything translates to college, that could go up to 3.5 blocks a game or some crazy shit where he leads the nation. So I think he's got good potential there, but it depends on how it translates.
Yeah, that's a guy I'm going to have to look into. But my question with this team is definitely defense. I mean, just looking up and down this roster, I don't think Woolley's, he's 6'5", 180. I don't know how he's going to translate defensively. Conwell was not a good defender last year. He was fine-ish, but like he's not a good defender. I don't think McNeely's a particularly good defender, and he's going to be pretty small going against threes. Pryor's coming off an injury and is a fine but not great defender, and I don't know anything about Frew. I know Khalifa is not a good defender. So my question with this team is definitely defense. They're going to win a lot of games 100-94 to me.
Which is fine. We've seen teams do it, right? I mean, Sonata Frew was on 24/7 Sports as a 4-star, rated 96, 25th nationally. Okay. I mean, and here's the evaluation back in February from Adam Finkelstein.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Let me get rid of this cough drop. Hold on a second. I didn't want to be chewing that much.
Yeah, you good.
So here's the scouting report. It says measuring in at 6'10" without shoes with a 7'2" wingspan. Frew is a long and versatile front court piece who will be turning 22 years old in August before freshman year at Louisville. On film, he shows offensive value as a finisher as well as flashes of floor spacing potential. He's a willing ball mover and doesn't need to be a focal point to make an impact. Defensively, his size and length are clear weapons, while he appears to have real potential to be versatile on that end, both from a positional standpoint and guarding ball screens in various ways. People are super high on this kid.
Yeah, sounds like it. Definitely someone I'm going to, as we get closer to the season, definitely someone I want to look into a little deeper. But my question with this roster as of now is going to be defense. It's just how can you answer on that side?
Completely makes sense. And if he's good defensively, that changes a lot. And same way with Sean Pryor. Pryor's got the ability to go block shots and switch on a pick and roll. So I think, Louisville's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, if they answer those calls, they're going to be really, really good.
Let's talk about Kentucky, who, selfishly, but I also think it's just being honest, absolutely is killed. Mark Pope has killed this roster build. Jalen Lowe coming in from Pitt, different type of point guard than what we saw with Lamont Butler. This is a more John Wall mold of a point guard. 6'3", 175, can really get up and down, athletic. Denzel Aberdeen coming in as a national champion from Florida. Great defender, good shooter. Mo Diabate, another one, great defender, has the ability to really step out and shoot. Brandon Garrison coming back adds a lot of value because you think he had a good sophomore year. You would like to see him improve as an even better junior year. Cam Williams is being slept on tremendously coming in from Tulane, the first commit of this portal cycle. 6'8", long, athletic, can really shoot the ball, has good defensive abilities on the other way with his athleticism and length, his wingspan to keep balls in front of him, and read passing lanes to get out in transition. Andre Jelovic, another international kid from Croatia, 6'11". If you watch the tape of him, he's a dude that can really he's not a great floor spacer yet, but he's a great floor spacer as when he catches the ball in the wing, he can attack you from the wing at 6'11". And then you talk of Jaden Quaintance. I know that's a risk, but man, you're talking about a lottery pick when he's healthy, and the current projections I've just seen coming from his own mouth, even hearing it from him, he's on pace to be fully cleared for 5-on-5 by, at the very least, late September, to be ready to go in October. So it sounds like he's not going to miss much, if any time at all. You're getting a rim protector, dude who can score, who can take you off the bounce of the Smart Pope system, that can be that Amari Williams point center type role. The freshman Jasper Johnson coming in, Malachi Moreno, then your returnees, Colin Chandler's due. I mean, he had a great second half of the year as a freshman, finally got comfortable. You expect a big breakout year as sophomore. Trent Noah, his role will be what it is, but the guy that I know you're going to talk about, he's in the NBA draft now, but everybody seems to think he's coming back. And if he comes back, this is what makes Kentucky a potential top 5 national championship caliber roster. That's Otega Owe. I know I went through a lot. I'll let you take the floor and kind of your thoughts. But from what we talked about kind of off air, we both agree this roster is built to really make a run this year.
Yeah, I mean, Otega Owe would be a guy if he comes back. I don't know the SEC obviously as well as you do, but SEC Player of the Year type to me. Like, I don't know how you would deny it. Like, I mean, super, super talented, really good on both ends, can score it, can shoot it, can facilitate, can really do a bit of everything. I think he's an excellent college player. Can I give you a pretty hot take, though, on this Kentucky
Go
team?
ahead, yeah. Say anything you want.
Yeah. Jaden Quaintance, I think, is going to be it's a little too early to tell based on who's coming back to school and not. Jaden Quaintance, I think, is going to be a first-team All-American.
Oh, my God. I love it. I thought you were going to say something different, and I was going to be like, your opinion, your opinion. Yeah. But I love it. What can't he do in this Mark Pope offense? He
was 17 last year and was the best rim protector frankly, in high major basketball at 17.
Before the injury, I think he graded out, you know how like Evan Maya and all them have advanced metrics and data. I think he was the nation's leading shot blocker by percentage or some shit like that.
Like something like that. Like, he's amazing. He's amazing. And he was at 17. Year of development, he's doing rehab, so sure that probably might stun it a little bit, but he's young. I think he's going to recover well. He's going to be in the gym. He's going to be getting ready, and you're able to still do skill work, which I think is kind of the area he really needs to, because he's got rim protection already. He'll be able to do some skill work in between the time of when he's like fully back, probably around like August, and like ready to do skill work to when he's ready to play 5-on-5. Maybe the adjustment takes a little bit, but like if he's there in September, October can be for adjusting. November is when the season begins. He'll be able to get fast-tracked and be ready then. I think he's a first-team All-American. He goes from 17 to 18. That's a lot of development that happens in this time, and I think we're completely overlooking that. I think
I love that take.
So skilled, yeah. Now, if Thomas Sorber comes back, I'm going to move him to second-team All-American just so I can move Sorber up, just so we can have that beef. But like, seriously, I think Quaintance he is special. I think he's going to be really fucking good, Josh.
No, the thing about Mark Pope is what's the areas that Kentucky got hurt with last season, right? And they had a really great first year under Mark Pope. All these wins and then made the Sweet 16. They lacked athleticism, and the defensive end could be weak, especially when Lamont Butler was out. Did he go fix these issues? Yeah. My God. Denzel Aberdeen, great defender. Mo Diabate, great defender. Brandon Garrison, for all of his flaws, can be a great rim protecting kind of pick and roll switcher defender, if that makes sense. Colin Chandler was a great defender as a freshman. Cam Williams has great defending potential. We don't know what Andre Yelovich, similar to Sonata Frew, if that translates, but there's potential. Malachi Moreno is a rim protector. Jaden Quaintz, we just raved about him being a defensive mind. Mm-hmm. And then the athleticism, Jalen Lowe leading you at point guard, Jasper Johnson, Colin Chandler, Aberdeen, Otega Owe. We didn't mention him about being a great defender. Every hole that they needed, they filled. The one weakness that you look at Kentucky, ironically, is where's the shooting? Because last year's team could really shoot the ball, but there's potential. Jalen Lowe is much better in catch and shoot. What does Mark Pope's system afford you to do? You get more catch and shoot opportunities. Denzel Aberdeen can shoot when he's catch and shoot. Mo Diabate, pick and pop, feet set, can knock them down. Same with Otega. So I'm not so worried about the shooting, even though it won't be as great as last year. But they went out and fixed. They got more athletic, they got more talented, and they got damn better defensively. There's reasons to think this team could go for a Final Four and compete for a national title.
Last year, I think the team was very specialized. You just got a lot of shooters at every spot, and you kind of hoped everything would work out. This year, you definitely don't have that same specialization, and shooting is definitely the question. But even a guy like Kim Williams, really good shooter when he was at Tulane, showed a lot of potential in that area. So you would hope that some of the shooting comes up, and you're not going to be as good a shooting team as you were last year. That's not going to happen, but you hope to be better in the other areas to make up for that and then some. Where if you're a good shooting team, but you're also a great rim protecting team, you have great athletes, you're able to get to the rim and have guys that can create their own shot, it takes you up another level.
The lack of athleticism is what got them beat against teams like Arkansas and Auburn and Alabama and stuff. If they could just shoot, let's say 36.5, 37%, if we look up and they're shooting that with everything else, damn. Let's move away from the teams in the state of Kentucky because we know they've killed it. Give me a just rapid fire because we need to start wrapping up here. We're starting to run out of time. Just give me some teams that you think has just killed the portal. Like, I'll give you one to kind of help you get going here. I think Indiana, new head coach, had to basically rebuild a whole new roster. We're still waiting on Tucker DeVries' official decision if he's eligible or not based upon medical red shirt. The theory is he will be. You bring in Tucker DeVries, stud. Lamar Wilkerson, the best shooter in the portal. They bring him in. They bring in a lot of dudes from smaller schools, but were highly coveted. Tatum Conaway comes in. Reed Bailey, 6'10", that could really shoot. Mark Pope wanted him. Trent Sisley's a freshman, comes in. Sam Alexis specialized, played at Florida for a national championship. Played off the bench only a couple minutes per game, but he has experience. He can rebound. He blocks shots. He's more of a defender. I think Indiana, for what they had to do in rebuilding an entire roster fairly quickly, I think Indiana did a great job in the portal so far.
Kind of go the other way. I don't think they have any athleticism on this roster whatsoever.
Are they Kentucky from last year?
Yeah, I kind of think so. But
they got shooters.
I don't think they're as good. I don't think they're as talented.
Yeah.
I don't think DeVries is amazing, but I don't think the other guys, they don't have an Otega Owe that can kind of do everything, which I think they kind of need. And I'm sorry, if your front court in the Big Ten is going to be this Josh Harris and Reed Bailey, you're just going to get bullied.
Not much physicality, but Bailey gives a lot of versatility and pick and pops.
Yeah, so they're another team that's going to have to win a lot of games 100-94, except they're not nearly as talented as Louisville. So I kind of go the other way there. I'll look. The Big Ten was the first league I was going to look at. I think Iowa did a very good job in the
Iowa, yep.
Granted, I mean, you bring over Ben McCollum, so you expected Bennett Sturts to come, but that's an All-American point guard. Frogaris is very good. Brendan Housen brings shooting. You kind of hope. I hope they get another athlete in with their next spot. You needed another really athletic piece who can kind of help defend with Mainayu at the rim with Banks. Just another athlete, I think, would really help that roster.
A little undersized right now, too.
Yeah, a little undersized, but
yeah.
I think they'd find a way to make it work. And the team that I think is kind of the big winner of the portal, assuming you need the draft decision to also go well, Michigan.
Oh, God dang, they've killed it, man.
I believe in Cadeau to take a step up. I really do. I think once you're kind of out of that system and he'll have more freedom. And Dusty, when he was on with us, he mentioned one thing that he didn't like about his team is assist to turnover ratio. Yep. You get Elliot Cadeau, that patches that hole. That was
you saw what he did with Trey Donaldson, who was fine at Auburn, but went to Michigan last year in that system under Dusty and became an all Big Ten type of performer at point guard.
And at the front court, it is hardest to bring in transfers at the front court. Like, that is where everybody has holes. You bring in Yaxel, All-American.
Assuming he stays.
Yeah,
Assuming he
big F.
stays.
Big F.
Yeah.
Morez Johnson showed a ton of potential last year.
Yep.
And Adai Mara is another guy. Big, skilled, ton of potential. Like, that front court is really, really good.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Michigan was a huge winner of the portal, assuming Yaxel pulls his name out of the draft, which is still to be determined here. But no, I think Michigan may be the preseason. We'll actually probably, when we do our magazine, assuming Yaxel comes back, will probably be a Big Ten preseason top 2. I don't know if we can put them ahead of Purdue. Purdue didn't really portal wise. Purdue didn't need to do a bunch, but they brought in a big one in Oscar Clough. That's a really talented roster. I'm looking at Illinois. They're going to be the Balkan team for, like, look at all the teams they've got from the Balkans. Mihailo Petrovic, Andrei Stojakovic, David Merkovich, Tomislav Ivisic. They got Big Z, his brother, to transfer in. They got 5 dudes from the Balkans, but what that brings is a lot of athleticism, or not athleticism, a lot of size, a lot of length on the wing, like with their arm lengths, and a lot of shooting. Andrei Stojakovic can shoot. Tomislav Ivisic can pick and pop. Big Z can really shoot the ball. Merkovich, not the best shooter of the bunch, but has the ability to. Mihailo Petrovic, can he slide in and be the number 1 point guard? The thing I worry about Illinois is defensively. Another team that's like, there's potential with the Ivisic brothers can block shots at the rim, but they're not, like, they get a little lazy in pick and roll coverage. They get pushed around a little bit. But if Brad Underwood can figure this out, man, Illinois has got a chance to be really fun next year.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. I'm sick in the Big Ten. I mentioned Washington earlier. Same. I think they're a huge winner. I think they're going to be very underrated after next season. That's a team I'm probably going to have like fringe top 25. I really like that roster. I don't think there's a team that really like stands out to me as like a huge winner of the portal in the ACC. I kind of like what Odom did at Virginia in year 1, but definitely have some questions with defense. Jakari White comes from the Summit League. Sam Lewis comes from a Toledo team that played 0 defense. You bring in Johan Grunlow, who is a guy with legitimate NBA aspirations from Germany. Dallin Hall. A lot of questions on the defense, but I think they're talented. Big 12, I like what West Virginia did. I don't know how high I'm going to be on them, but like I think that's a team that can make the tournament, honestly.
There's only one team in the Big 12 I want to talk about real quick.
Okay. Yeah, you go there, and then I'm going to go to the Big East. So you go there.
BYU. It's BYU. They spend a shit ton of money. They bring in Rob Wright as their point guard. Richie Saunders is back, and I know this isn't portable. I'm just talking. We're talking over.
Sure. Yeah.
They bring in AJ DeBonta, probably the number 1 pick in next year's NBA draft. They bring him in to freaking BYU. Is insanity. Dawson Baker, like this team. I know Kebaketa is back, but the fact that they held on to him, dude, you're putting Rob Wright, AJ DeBonta together in Provo with Richie Saunders back and Kebaketa with some role players. I'm sure that we'll figure out that in that system will be good. Like, is Dominic Diomande any good? We'll figure it out. Boscovich, is he any good? I'm sure we'll figure it out. But that starting 5 is legit. Yeah. Kennard Davis Jr. coming in too. BYU is going to be damn good.
Yeah.
Damn good.
Yeah. They're going to be a ton of fun. And I'm going to go, I agree with everything. BYU is a preseason top 10.
Top 10.
Team.
Top 10, yeah.
Around that range. I'm going to go with one in the Big East. There's definitely been some teams that have caught national attention. I think the one that's going under the radar, and I think the team, they're going to be my pick to win the Big East with a bullet, like definitive gap between them and the rest. UConn's back, man.
I think you're the other one.
Yeah, no, I think that other team's pretty overrated. I'm going here. I'm going UConn. I think the one piece UConn was missing, Dan Hurley would go to every single press conference and say his team was weak. They didn't have a big physical guard. Then they get Silas Demery to run the show. Off the bench, you get Malachi Smith. You have point guards now. You have the rest of the piece. Solo ball's getting better. Alex Carabin, you bring him back. That is experience. That is a guy who knows how to win. Bring back Terrace Reed. That is, you're going to upgrade at center from last year because Reed's going to get better and Samson Johnson was just okay.
That's as good a starting five as you'll find in the country right there.
Anyone.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then
I
Braylon
think
Mullen.
Silas Demery is the best transfer coming into the Big East.
Yeah. I think I would agree with that. I mean, over Bryce Hopkins too. Well, because he was technically in the Big East.
But. Yeah, but I would even put him over Bryce Hopkins. We don't know how Bryce is going to come back from the injury, and Bryce is not nearly as good a defender as Silas is.
I agree. And then Braylon Mullins. I mean, from right here in Indiana, where we're at, like he can shoot the shit out of the thing. So
St. John's took all the headlines. UConn's got a team that could win a national title.
I agree. I 100% agree with that. I think that's a fair point, man. Anybody else strike you here? Because I'm kind of looking up the roster. Like you said, ACC outside of Louisville. I mean, we've already talked about what Miami and North Carolina State are doing out of necessity. I think they should be commended for that. They've got competitive rosters. SMU bringing Boopy Miller back, BJ Edwards, Jaron Pierre, I think the nation's leading scorer last year.
They're just one of those teams. SMU, they just got a floor packed in. Fringe. Like floor is 10 seed. Or, excuse me, ceilings. They have a cap ceiling, excuse me. I said that completely backwards. It's like a 9 seed in the tournament.
If you get the Sam Walters from Alabama 2 years ago, that's a corner pick and pop threat, then that really helps some depth there. But I mean, they did good getting some, bringing some guys back. Getting Jaron Pierre is a big time get in the scoring department. Is Jermaine O'Neal Jr. going to be like his dad? Is he going to be good? I mean, he's not as tall. He's listed as a 6'5", 175 small forward. Mm-hmm. We'll see. But I think for big winners, I think that kind of caps my involvement. Because, I mean, A10, do you really have anybody in the Mountain West or any of those that have caught your eye or anything? Because
I mean, that would have to be after tape. I don't know enough about any of these rosters. I will say, just going up and down the ACC, I don't know. I was really on this team 2 years ago, and I thought they'd be better last year, but I don't hate this Georgia Tech roster. Lamar Washington, skilled scorer. Jaden Mustafa was a recruit with talent. I think Bandongo is very good. And Peyton Marshall is just one of those guys. I think if you get him in shape and committed to being a basketball player at this point, the offensive skill set is there. He's just not in physical shape. If you get him in good shape and you work on his body for these next 6 months, I think he's a kid that could actually be really good. But
I'll give two real quick from the Mountain West and we'll wrap up. One solely because they kept a dude that was highly coveted, thought to be going elsewhere. And that's San Diego State simply for getting Magoon Guath back. Mm-hmm. Had they lost him, they're in real trouble. Getting him back, Miles Bird's back. They bring in Sean Newman Jr. They'll be competitive again. And then Utah State brings in Colby Keene, MJ Collins, Gary Clark, Mason Falselves is back, or Falslev. I'll say it right. They probably are the favorite to win the Mountain West just on paper, initially looking at it. So we'll give them some shout outs. But man, what a show. We went super long, but we had a lot to talk about over the last 3 weeks. I think this was a great conversation. We had more people tune in today than I thought. I told you, I was like, man, we may only get 5 people because it was late notice or really no notice at all. Yeah. If that, we have a great fan base. We appreciate shit. I mean, new people commenting, Peanut Butter Posse. We appreciate you guys. Connor, the Stroud House, everybody. Thank you guys for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this kind of long form covering everything that we've talked about so far and seeing the transfer portal offseason. When we come back with the next show, we'll make sure we have more notice. You'll know the topic ahead of time. We're working some interviews coming up. I don't want to spoil them, but we're in the process of going through some not legal, but you might as well say legal stuff to acquire all this to get it done. So once we get the I's dotted,
the red tape,
the red tape. Thank you. Yeah. We'll be able to share that exciting stuff with you. So we got a lot coming at you for this summer. We will let you know when the next show will be. It will not be another 3 weeks from now. It'll be relatively soon. But thank you guys for tuning in. Episode 228. Until next time, we hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave a like, follow, subscribe to YouTube, subscribe to the Twitter at ECB Podcast, and all that fun stuff. But until next time, we will catch you guys down the road. Peace.